Thanks to @0ear for my sub gift !0W0. Anniversary gift is in the mail. Love you, Daddy.
A hunter must hunt.
23 months? That's a lot of time to give to a cult leader on the internet. Less than 3.
The Hollow Knight soundtrack slaps so hard. It's so good. Hope you finished work. So the last day and a half, like more than a day and a half, have been boring as fuck because I've been on a wireless assessment, and wireless assessments are usually pretty boring. Okay, usually pretty boring. But it got fucking spicy as shit today, boys. Maximus, you're too loud for compared to my voice. Shut up! All right. We are back from 2 long weeks. A shade more than 2 weeks, actually, it ended up being. Welcome. Welcome, everyone. For those who do not know me, I am Alhazred, and I'm here as ever to teach you the eldritch magic of hacking. Verily I say unto you, Fingrui, Muglwinoff, Cthulhu, Ridye, Gognoggle, Faten. Your beard has grown? I know, I need to shave it. I meant to shave it earlier today, and I just got caught up in things. How was Philly? It was good. It was good. It was good. I mean, I couldn't really stream from there, and it kind of sucked not having my own workspace, but other than that, it was great. Had a good time. We do be noggling our goggles. We do be doing that. My goodness, so many subs. Oh my god. Oreo Bite with the 21, Daniel with the 4, Dark Eldar with the 29, Unnamed Comment with 21. My goodness, my most faithful followers. Just a Guy with 15, Bravo Child, like becoming an actual cultist, not a Bezos initiate. 23 months from Maticus Maximus. My goodness. Sparwall with the 4. Maticus gifts us 5 new subs. FDS Sec, it's VRL, New Wind, Cyber Samurai, and Red Dew. Virtual Attack brings us Frank. Thank you so much, Maticus and Virtual Attack. That's so kind of you. John Doe Norris with 23 months. I am overwhelmed. Ghostwire with the 10. Zero Kieran with the 17. Carlos Artman with the 13. Slayer with the 12. And Buttstab, of course, with the 69. Nice. Tiggle bitties. Well, thank you guys so much. You guys are so kind to me. Dark Eldar especially with the 29. That is monstrous. You madman. You psychopath. That is a lot of money to give to a cult leader on the internet. Will you make this a VOD? I certainly will. I certainly will. It will be a VOD on my channel after I'm finished streaming. It'll be on my channel for you to view. So, how's everybody been for a few weeks? It's been 2 weeks since you looked at me. I don't know the rest of the song, and I'm angry. I need to clip you yelling at me. I mean, I'm sure you can. I'm sure that it is possible for you. Hi, my name is Maticus, and I'm Burn the Hell Out. Been there, dude. Been there. Been there. We followed the cult's teaching. Excellent. Go to bed tonight knowing a little bit more than you did yesterday. That is the teaching of the cult. Cart P? I have no idea what that is. I don't know what that is. I'm assuming it's a cert or some kind of online course, perhaps. I've been doing CrowdStrike evasion stuff. I've been doing assessments. I've been on like 3 or 4 assessments in the last few weeks. It's really been a banger. Certified Azure Red Team Professional. Ooh, I might have to take that. I miss this weird guy who lived in my house for 2 weeks. Yeah, I mean, your dog certainly doesn't. Oh, maybe he does. I don't know. Rocco is very strange. I don't understand him at all. He's so hot and cold. He's the most hot and cold of any living thing I've ever met in my entire life. He is... It's just baffling. I don't understand. Wero187 with the 4 months. Welcome back to the All Has Red Team, my friend. Thanks for supporting the stream. Now, before we get started for the day, I do want to address the final stream before I went to Philadelphia, where I got, one might say, how would you put it? You know, we did some malding. We did a little malding. Okay? For those who don't remember, we did... I don't remember the hack-the-box machine we were doing. What was the machine? I don't remember the machine. I don't remember the machine's name. Yeah, it was a certified ethical malding. Yeah, there you go. CEM. We took CEM. So, I don't remember the name of the box, but there's a hack-the-box machine that requires you to do the Felina exploit, which is a big exploit that was discovered last year involving remote code execution, predominantly through Microsoft Word. It was used in lots of phishing, and it was very nasty for a period of time, for about 4 days, until all of the AV vendors started flagging on it all at the same time. So, and we just couldn't. It's in other words, it's a client-side exploit. Okay, it's one of those. We're gonna call. I'm not even allowed to write Felina. Yes, I banned it. I forgot I even did that. But after I got off the stream, I banned it so people would stop memeing it. The problem is if I don't ban it, you guys are gonna meme it forever because I was so mad. I was real mad. I'm not gonna try and sugarcoat it. I was very mad. I got madder than I should have. Is this a filter bypass? You guys are all bypassing the filter now. The point is, Felina is a client-side exploit. What does that mean? It means it requires somebody to click on it, or open the file, or view something. Like cross-site scripting would be client-side. It's not an exploit that can be performed in the absence of a victim user to trigger the exploit. Does that make sense? You don't see these too often in CTFs, because CTFs are typically meant to be done without any user logged on. But sometimes, it's uncommon, but not terribly rare. You'll have, but not super rare. It's pretty common, honestly. You'll have some kind of mechanism on the machine. You'll have some sort of mechanism on the machine that's designed to emulate a user. Like, that's opening a file every so often, or clicking on emails every so often, and so on and so forth, usually through some kind of cron job, or scheduled task, or something like that. Is everyone following me when we describe what I mean by client-side exploits? Does everyone understand what I mean by that? Is anybody confused by what I mean when I talk about client-side exploits in these CTFs? We get it? Fellow Pen 200 folks are unfortunately familiar. Oh yeah, there's plenty of them in there. So, the reason we're having this discussion is, I think we're probably going to generally start avoiding these types of exploits on the stream. The language I used before I left is that I just wanted to ban them outright. And I still do want to ban them outright. The problem with client-side exploits is that I like the fact that they're in CTFs. Don't get me confused. I like that they're in CTFs. I like that box creators are coming up with creative ways to emulate users on a machine and have cool little exploits and stuff. They are not fun to watch on stream. I can't remember a single time we did a client-side exploit on stream and it wasn't one huge bag of ass. Like, that one, that one during the last stream was particularly ass, because whatever the scheduled task was, like, the biggest problem is that every single time, for whatever reason, the scheduled task is designed to run, like, every 5 or 10 minutes, so we're stuck on this stream, sitting here and just waiting it out for a long time. And It is pain. Remember when I did Anubis again, and I just wanted to fly through it to show you guys the ADCS stuff, and then we got completely stonewalled on the stupid Jamovi exploit forever? Like, that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about with the... That's the kind of thing I'm talking about with these client-side exploits. I like that they're in CTFs, I really do, but on stream, they are just a nightmare to watch, because it takes forever to exploit them usually, to just get the exploit perfectly right. You never know if the box is up or down, if the scheduled task broke, if something is broken on the machine and you're just waiting forever for no reason. You never know is the problem. And so I did a lot of thinking about this. I don't know if I can ban these outright. I just can't. Because what am I supposed to do? Look up the walkthrough of every box before I do it? That undermines the whole point of the stream if I look up the walkthrough of the box just to see if there's a client-side exploit involved. I can't just ban them outright, so I want to start avoiding them is what I'm trying to say. If I know a box has a client-side exploit involved, I may just move to another box. It's just, I just don't feel like it's good content for you guys. What do you guys think on that? I just don't think... Oh, hi, Ipsex in stream. Hi, Ipsex. Good to see you. We were doing the Word document, yes. I was doing the Word document. I could not get it to work. I just couldn't get it to work. And I'm sure it was something I was doing. I'm sure I was making a mistake.
A hunter must hunt.
It's not a Word document.
For your great work in teaching
Well,
people
Word
good
is not, if I
security.
remember right, Word is not installed on the machine. I don't think I was sending it a Word document.
A hunter must hunt.
I actually don't think Word is not
Hey,
installed
chat,
on that Hack the Box
anyone
machine. It's been
hiring?
2 weeks, so
I have 1.5
I don't remember
years
it.
of SOC experience. Hit me up.
I don't remember
Less
it
than
entirely.
3.
But Word was not installed on the machine, so we used an RTF file, I think. Yeah, no, it was chat telling me to send a Word document. That's it. Chat was telling me to send a Word document, and you take the Felina exploit out and point it at a JavaScript file. I'm pretty sure that's what I did. I'm pretty sure I did something to that effect. I can't remember exactly. It's been 2 weeks. We did not do a Word document. I'm remembering now that chat was telling me to do a Word document, and I said, absolutely not. We're not doing a Word document because that doesn't make any sense. And we got callbacks. It was reaching back to us, but we couldn't get anything to exploit. And the thing is, it was just taking too long. Like, it was just taking so long to get it to work. And I'm sure it was something I was doing. It was something I was doing wrong.
I mostly just lurk.
Yeah, so, I mean, John Hammond's exploit, it gave me a callback. I got a callback, and I didn't just use John Hammond's. I tried other ones, too. I'm sure there was some way to do it, and I just... On stream, I kind of got blinded by my tilt. And I wanted to apologize to you guys for that. It wasn't a good look for me. I felt really bad for it for the entire following day. It was just a really bad look for me. I really wasn't happy about it. I apologize for how I behaved on that stream. I got really tilted. And my tilt is magnified when I'm in front of a whole bunch of people and feeling nervous and confused, and it just magnifies my anger. Like, if I was just messing with it on my own, like sitting at my desk, nobody watching me, I'd be frustrated, sure, but I wouldn't get as mad as I did on the stream. It gets magnified when I'm in front of you guys, and I apologize about that. I want to bring you guys good content that entertains you and also teaches you. And it's a tough box. You need a vulnerable Windows box to play with yourself. Yeah, that's what I really needed to do. I needed to just pull apart the exploit on my own. And I think I was just beating my head with the same freaking thing over and over again. And that's really not the correct answer. It's just that's what I default to on the stream because... I don't know. On the stream, I tend to be wary of, like... trying to like pull out my Windows dev box and start debugging things and all that good stuff. I mean, I apologize. I did not behave well. I like these boxes that have these client-side exploits, but I think we're going to start avoiding them on stream just because they take so long to do. And I don't feel like we really learn anything substantial from them either. I mean, we do learn things from them, but I think that I think that having boxes that we can move that are a bit more dynamic are a little bit more better for a streaming environment. Payload Viking with the 8 months, Year Zero with the 21, Cyville with the 7 months. I'm sorry, 8 months. And Barry Duino with the 18 months. Welcome back to the All Has Red team, all of you. Thank you guys so much. All the public exploits put in an RTF Word document. Well, I was getting callbacks. Whatever I was doing, I was getting callbacks. I don't remember exactly what I was doing. Whatever I was doing, I was getting callbacks. It's just I couldn't get stuff to execute. So I'm sure it was something I was doing wrong. But again, it frustrated me more in the moment, and I was raging harder than I should have. I need to keep that in mind and stay at a level on the stream, okay? I appreciate all of your understanding with that. Okay. Here's what we're starting with, fellas. Okay. Today we're going to be talking about what I want to do with the stream in the future. I do want to diversify my content a little bit. I don't just want to do boxes all the time. People have been asking me, hey, can you do this? Can you do more like red team focused content? And and I'm like, well, there are very few CTF boxes that have red team stuff on them. And like EDR, for instance, there are no CTF boxes to my knowledge running CrowdStrike Falcon. Okay, nobody's paying for a CrowdStrike Falcon license to just run a CTF. Okay, although that'd be pretty funny. Like if that's an idea. That's an idea for what if I did another CTF. I could pay for a CrowdStrike Falcon. If I ran CrowdStrike, that would be mean. That would be freaking mean. If I did my own CTF again, and I did CrowdStrike, and I put CrowdStrike on it, no, I don't think anybody would solve it. To be honest with you, I don't think anybody would solve it. CrowdStrike is it's wily. Okay, it's wily. It's a CrowdStrike. To be clear, CrowdStrike on Windows is a wily motherfucker. Okay, that's a tough animal. That's one of the tougher animals that I have to cope with. They're doing a good job over there. I'm not saying it is impossible to bypass. I bypassed it multiple ways on my last one, and managed to pivot and do all that stuff. We got past CrowdStrike on my last engagement. It's just whenever I see CrowdStrike, I'm like, oh god. Oh, another CTF of staring at Visual Studio Code forever, wondering what I can do to make my payloads bypass CrowdStrike. You know, that's kind of what it's like. CrowdStrike Falcon's is pretty good. I would put it at the top tier if I were to put a tier list of EDRs. CrowdStrike would be in the top tier. Windows Defender for Endpoint would also be high tier. It's also very good. Carbon Black is also good. I would put it below CrowdStrike. Bottom tier would be like Symantec, McAfee. Sentinel-1 is not very good. I put Sentinel-1 in like B tier, maybe. Maybe C tier. Trend Micro, I've only seen them once, and they weren't a problem. So I can't speak for Trend Micro, but they were not a problem. Sentinel-1, not a problem. Sentinel-1 does a good job of protecting LSAS, but it was easy to bypass their signatures. I have not encountered FireEye yet. I'll let you know if I encounter FireEye. Anyway, point is, that's just I'm speculating, okay? People want to see more red team content is what I'm trying to say. But there's no boxes like that. So how would you guys feel if every so often, I'm not talking about every week, maybe once every couple of weeks, we did like a red team focused stream where I focused on some concept that was interesting to red teaming, and we just played with it. It'd be more of a dev stream than anything. People don't realize how much red teaming is just staring at Visual Studio Code trying to get your code to run. Okay, because that's a lot of what red teaming is. It's like red teaming is like 60% enumeration and recon, and like 35% payload development.
Red team stream include client side
and then the remaining 5% in there is like lateral movement, actions on target, and stuff like that. Yeah. So it'd be more of a dev stream. We'd not be doing boxes on those days. I don't think I'm gonna add an additional streaming day. I can't cope with any more streaming days. 3 days a week is as much as I can do right now with my current workload. That is, if you guys want any other content out ever. I might make it a Sunday or a Thursday stream every so often. It's not going to be an every week thing. It's just every so often maybe I'll feel like doing like showing off process injection techniques, playing around with process injection, and doing some spicy process injection takes. Yeah, we could try one of those streams coming up here. Not this week, maybe next week we can try one of those streams. And we'll see how it goes. Today, we're going to try something a little bit new, and that's we're going to start off the stream with a segment. We're going to start off the stream with a segment today, and that segment is, as I have named it, Antivirus Evasion for the laziest and worst coders possible who absolutely cannot do anything custom and also don't know what GitHub is to find packers and loaders that other people have written. Okay? That's what we're doing today. I'm going to be showing you how to bypass that most horrifying of adversaries. If you're a beginner, what's your scariest adversary? Okay? If you're a beginner, what haunts your dreams at night? Microsoft Defender. Yes. Microsoft Defender. You wake up in a cold sweat with the little blue slider of real-time protection set to on. Like, you know, who's doing that? Be honest. Be honest. Tamper protection is on. Everybody's like the meme of the guy like wiping his tamper protection is on. LSAS protection is on. The meme of the guy wiping his forehead with a handkerchief. Who's be honest. Who's afraid of Windows Defender? It's okay. It's all right. And let's also be honest. Who thinks that Meterpreter is not very useful because it gets caught by antivirus a lot? It's very well known and gets signatured by antivirus very easily. Who thinks Meterpreter is bad because of that? Be honest. Be honest. I'm afraid of Defender for Endpoint. You should be. If you're red teaming, you should be afraid of Defender for Endpoint. It's not as hard to bypass as CrowdStrike, in my opinion. Defender for Endpoint has some notable blind spots. But CrowdStrike, I would say, is a shade tougher. But I'd put them both maybe in the same tier. It's not you can bypass Defender with it. Meterpreter is the best thing since sliced red. Okay, yeah, all right. People are standing Meterpreter in the chat. I'm okay with that. I'm good with that. Meterpreter is amazing. Okay, Meterpreter is a tremendously robust. We've used it. We don't use it very often on stream, mostly because I just prefer to catch raw reverse shells. But realistically, Meterpreter is a totally reasonable option for like an internal pen test, or something like that. Totally reasonable option. Meterpreter is used a lot by the bad guys. It is a very powerful tool. And you are right that because it is powerful and because it is well known, it is well signatured, particularly by Windows Defender. It is well signatured. So we have some limitations. We're going to be taking today, and I'm going to be discussing how to get a Meterpreter shell through Windows Defender as simply and as lazily as possible. Now, there are some limits to this. It's not like we're just going to be able to run Msfvenom with the TAC format exe and Msfvenom is going to kick out an exe that we're just going to drop and run and get a Meterpreter shell, okay? It's not going to be that. I'm just kidding. It's totally that simple, okay? I'm totally joshing you. It 100% is that simple, and we are just going to run Msfvenom and get an exe that bypasses Windows Defender. Like, I guarantee you it can be done. And we're going to discuss some considerations. I'm going to take this as an opportunity to discuss with you how antivirus works. How antivirus works, how Windows Defender specifically works, and how we subvert each of these operations. Okay? Are we going to lab it? What do you mean by labbing it? I mean, yeah, I'm going to demonstrate it. Yeah, obviously I'm going to demonstrate all of this. Antivirus versus EDR. Thank you for asking, Binary Impact. That is an important thing that we're talking about here. Antivirus is not endpoint protection. Okay, EDR stands for endpoint detection and response. It's a good way of... It's endpoint protection and EDR are the same thing. Antivirus and EDR are not. These are different discussions. Okay? EDR is often thought of by lay people as like souped up antivirus. And it's not really wrong to think of it that way. Not really. Like, if you want to think about it on really, really, really high levels. But the functionality of these is entirely different. The functionality of antivirus versus endpoint protection is entirely different. Yeah, they both do catch malicious activity and often stop it on a machine. Okay? EDR is much more robust, operates differently. It'll often have signature-based detections like antivirus as well, or it'll work alongside Windows Defender sometimes. But in general, EDR is a different discussion. That would be a discussion for like our red team streams if we wanted to discuss EDR
Celebrating
evasion.
another sub baby with you, Mr. Streamer. Also, I applied to be a Twitch partner today.
Nice.
Thanks for inspiring me to stream.
Congrats, Tiberius.
Tibbs
That's very glad. Now, FYI, Tibbs, they're gonna deny you the first time. I think I told you this, but it's sort of Twitch's thing that they just deny you the first time. Okay, just wait out the period. There's like a 30-day period you're gonna have to wait and keep your numbers up, and then they're gonna deny it because they're gonna say that it's a recent uptick. It's a recent temporary uptick in your numbers, and we want to make sure they don't go back down or whatever, right? They're gonna send you some email like that, and they're gonna deny you. Just wait out the period. There's a cooldown period, and then you can request again, and you'll get it the second time if your numbers are still high enough. Okay, that's how it works. AV is more about file scanned at rest, where EDR is looking at memory and considered behavior. EDR is much more wily. It's looking much more at the behavior, at malicious behavior on a machine, rather than at hard-coded signatures. Again, EDR is a different discussion. Getting past EDR is a much more tricky animal. Okay, it involves knowing who in chat knows what a userland hook is. Who in chat knows what a userland hook is? See, again, this is red team stuff. This is Newbie Tuesday. We're not going to be talking about userland hooks on Newbie Tuesday, okay? I'm just drawing a distinction between what endpoint protection is and what antivirus is, okay? On the more robust red teaming streams, we can talk about userland hooks, okay? Userland hooks are in a very simple terms. Userland hooks are how EDR can tell when a function is being called, like in a DLL, for instance. EDR can detect when a process is calling a particular function in the Windows API or in the native APIs, and it can try to decide what to do with that information. The way that is done is through hooks. Any other blue teamers here to check out what those red team rascals are up to? We're not talking about red team stuff today. This isn't red team stuff. This is antivirus evasion. Okay? Antivirus evasion. So it detects that at runtime. It's going to look at, EDR is going to look at a number of functions being called, and it's going to say, is that likely suspicious? Like, for example, if EDR sees virtual alloc, memory being copied into a different process, and then calling create remote thread. Like, if EDR sees that, is it going to be concerned about that, do you think? Yes. You don't. This is Newbie Tuesday, so I don't expect you to know. But yes, that is the traditional series of API calls for process injection. Okay, looks super sussy-wussy. EDR would flag that. There are ways to process inject and get past EDR, but that's beyond Newbie Tuesday stuff. That's deep magic, okay? Deep magic. Different discussion, okay? Different discussion. This is why we don't often do the red team stuff on stream, because it's difficult to I can't boil it down very much. I try to take on topics that I can boil down and make approachable to as many people as possible. Even if you don't understand everything of what's happening on stream, you can just understand it at the high level. But if you're looking at, like, if we're talking about direct syscalls to evade userland hooks, a newbie is not going to look at that and go, this is information that I can definitely understand what is happening and distill it. You know, it's just, I find it can be unapproachable. It can seem kind of esoteric and unapproachable. So it's, we'll talk about, it's going to be a different stream. This is for antivirus stuff. So let's talk about antivirus, okay? Today, I'm going to show you, don't tell Microsoft, okay? How to generate an Msfvenom executable just straight out of Msfvenom. No other encoders used. We're using only Metasploit today for this demonstration anyway. Only Metasploit to generate a payload. It will execute with Windows Defender real-time protection on, and it will bypass them and get us a Meterpreter shell. Okay? That I guarantee you that will happen today, unless Microsoft's telemetry is more on point than I think. I mean, unless Microsoft is being sneakier, my box is isolated from the internet, so I don't think that they would have caught on. The biggest strength of Windows, honestly, is their telemetry. It seems like they catch on to my payloads really, really, really fucking fast, for some reason. But the some reason is telemetry. So I'm making an app that is basically ipsec.rocks, but the opposite. She'll only show you boxes that don't match keywords. That way you can check if a box didn't contain client side. Well, that's nice of you. That would be very nice. All right, so we're going to do that today. So let's talk about antivirus. Okay, let's talk about antivirus. Let's go on over to, I guess over here. Let's talk about antivirus. Let's do I guess we do a notepad stream. Quick notepad stream. My goodness, Trash Puppy. Trash Puppy. With the raid, welcome, Trash Puppy. Welcome in. We're talking about hacking and evading antivirus. How to get your malware running in the presence of the dreaded Windows Defender. Welcome, everyone. This is Newbie Tuesday. If you don't know any hacking, we're hackers on this stream, okay? Offensive cybersecurity professionals. Every one of us, okay? But today's Newbie Tuesday, so I hope to distill it down as much as possible to even people who've never seen security before. So let's talk about antivirus. Okay, so what's the most common kind of antivirus detections? What's the most common type of detection? Signature-based. Excellent. W. Popper. Signature-based detections. What does that mean? What does signature-based detections mean? With signature-based, it means antivirus is scanning the file on disk, and it's looking for a pattern of bytes, typically a string, that it associates with, it has a massive database. It has a massive database of malicious strings, essentially. And it's searching your executable for any of those malicious strings. Does that make sense? Is it just me or sound alerts no working? Are the sound alerts not work? God damn it. Hang on. The sound alerts. Looks like the sound alerts don't work. Hang on a second. Shoot. Hang on. Oh, thank you. Refund them if they redeem for right now. I apologize. I'm looking at my dashboard really quickly. Okay, I think they're working. I just sent a test. It seems like it's working. Try it now. Here, I'll try and redeem it. Hang on. FBI, open up! Alright, it's working now. I don't know what that was about. That was weird. I just logged into the service and sent myself a test one, and it seems like it's working.
What are you
Strings
doing,
like strings or a binary
step-bro?
sequence. But like a binary sequence. But typically it's going to be a string, but not always. So it's going to be a sequence of bytes. I mean, keep in mind, a string is also just a binary sequence. A string is also a binary sequence. Computers understand ones and zeros. They don't understand A's and B's. Does that make sense, Zach Sanulis?
What are you doing, step-bro?
Oh, God. Now the floodgates have been unleashed, okay? Is this database local, checked remotely, or both? Depends on the AV. Usually a combination of both. Okay. Your title is outdated? Is it? Wait, what's my title? How is my title outdated? What? Oh, it's outdated underneath my thing. Okay, hang on. Let me change it. Lazy AV evasion is just what we'll call it. Okay? There we go. Lazy AV evasion. There you go. You happy? Okay. Signatures. All right. So a specific binary sequence being looked for in a file by the antivirus. The antivirus will flag if it finds one of its known malicious signatures in there. Does that make sense, everybody? Everybody following me on signature-based detections. What are some ways of bypassing signature-based detections? Like if your malicious string, if you have malware with known malicious strings in it, how do you bypass signature-based? Yeah, obfuscation, and also coding your own. Yeah, code your own malware, custom malware, custom payloads, obfuscation. Now, obfuscation has a number of things you can do. Encoding, yes, encoding. Or we'll say encrypting. Or we could say scrambling, like splitting up the strings, like for example, if you have the string Mimikatz, you could make it. Does that make sense? Stuff like that. Okay. Yes, Zor. Yes. Okay. Yeah, get it out of your system. Okay. Get it out of your system. What does a signature look like? For Windows Defender, it's a lot of hashes in a database. What's the point in antivirus if you can just what's the point in antivirus if you can just bypass it doing that? Well, because there's other forms of detections. In the early days of antivirus, specifically Windows Defender especially, this was all there was. It was purely a signature-based detection engine. And yeah, all you needed to do was encode or encrypt, and you could bypass stuff. Okay? To be fair, for most people, if you're just a casual lazy user, if you're just a casual user who doesn't work for like a corporation or anything like that, this is really all you need realistically, okay? You don't need... This is why Norton Antivirus, McAfee, and all these stuff are... It's not really a scam, but it's kind of snake oil in that Windows Defender is going to protect you against 99% of stuff that you'd get hit with. As long as you're updating your browser and not downloading random files all the time. Maybe if you're doing the occasional torrent. One time I accidentally downloaded a virus or some kind of malware through a torrent. But Windows Defender caught it. That's my point. Windows Defender is going to catch 99% of this stuff. Okay? So AV is always low-hanging fruit stuff. That's what you're protecting yourself against the majority of the time. It's kind of like, imagine like your immune system, your own immune system. You don't expect your immune system to literally stop everything under the sun. you're expecting your immune system to stop 99% of infections, and then occasionally you're going to get sick because something slipped through, right? Does that make sense? Like, every so often something's going to slip through. So you still have to, like, eat healthy and exercise and stuff. You can't just rely on the immune system, okay? Yeah, COVID, new variants, whatever. COVID variants are basically obfuscation. COVID is learning to obfuscate itself or modify its behavior. Not really learning, it's not alive, but you know what I mean. So there's also, what is the other main kind of detection that's associated with antivirus specifically? There's two main kinds of detection. There's one that's more modern, and there's signature based. Yeah, heuristic or behavior. If heuristic is too scary and big of a word for you, try behavioral, which is actually, I think, a longer word. But if you don't understand what behavioral means, I would point you to Google to figure it out. Okay? So, heuristics. Is it H-E-U? Yeah, it's E-U. So, what is heuristic and behavioral detection? This is why I have to quit Windows Defender before torrenting traffic. I mean, that's why you shouldn't disable tamper protection. A lot of payloads will disable Windows Defender immediately before they start executing. That's why tamper protection exists. So, behavioral detection is antivirus is going to watch the payload running and see if it does anything that it knows is strange. Okay? It looks at kind of how like the operations of the executable as it's running. It may run it in a sandbox, and it may just observe it as it is executing. Okay? Windows Defender can do both. Okay? Windows Defender does have a sandbox. It does have a sandbox, and it will run stuff. So sandbox evasion is kind of like a whole different discussion that we're not going to really go into today. We don't really need to, not for the purposes of this discussion. But how do you get around heuristic and behavioral detection? What are some ways of getting around? Because you can't just obfuscate it, because ultimately, if you're running Mimikatz, even if the string Mimikatz doesn't actually appear in the file, it's still doing Mimikatz stuff. Okay? Polymorphism, good. Polymorphism is an example. What does that mean? What does polymorphism mean? Polymorphism means that the malware sort of randomizes its specific operations. It changes how it functions every single time it executes. It may insert random sleeps in there. It may switch out different assembly instructions that are equivalent. Like, instead of like moving 0 into EDX or RDX or whatever, it might just XOR RDX with RDX, which produces the same exact output. XORing anything with itself is 0. Does that make sense? You're swapping out assembly instructions that are equivalent to one another, which means that different instructions are being executed. This kind of scrambles heuristic detection. It kind of defeats heuristic detection on a base level. Could you give a behavioral example, the simplest you can think? I'm about to. Don't jump ahead, okay? We're going to talk about behavioral stuff here in a little bit. Don't worry. Again, this is lazy antivirus evasion. We're not going to be having to look at any assembly today, okay? We're going to discuss how to evade, because Windows Defender can detect Meterpreter behaviorally, okay? Windows Defender, in fact, up until like maybe a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, the primary detection of Windows Defender for Meterpreter was behavioral. In that you'd get a callback and it would say sending stage in Metasploit, and then you would just never start. Your Meterpreter would never start. Why do you think that happens? Because of behavioral detections. Windows Defender is detecting Meterpreter starting up. It's seeing behavior that it knows is associated with Meterpreter. Does that make sense? Like, for example, say you run a payload, and the payload reaches out to a certain URL with a certain URI at the end. Like the URI is
A
very
hunter
distinctive,
must hunt.
and downloads a binary payload, and then runs it, and then executes it. The Windows Defender could look at the URL that's being called to, see it's downloading a binary payload from that URL, and go, that's bad. That's a heuristic detection. Does that make sense? Does that make sense, friends? It's not always staging based. You can catch stageless execution with this stuff too. But in the case of Meterpreter is staged. At least the majority of Meterpreter payloads are staged. Doesn't seem difficult. It seems difficult at all. It's confusing, isn't it? What about metamorphic malware? That's sort of the same thing as polymorphism. Not really the same thing. It's kind of a pedantic difference. Metamorphic malware is malware that just changes its code around randomly every single time it's compiled. That's all. That's all it is. Is that the reason why my non-stage payload works but stage doesn't? Correct. That is probably the reason. There could be a lot of reasons for that, but that's probably the reason. Polymorphism is an example. Custom stuff is always an example. Another thing you can do is, like, change the process injection technique. Like, if there's some kind of process injection technique going on, like, say it's doing create remote thread process injection. But you can change that, and there's other ways to do process injection other than create remote thread. Just change it to other API calls, and then now all of a sudden, it's not catching it anymore. Also, we'll see a little bit of heuristic detection today, I think. We'll see. But Windows Defender is using both of these to catch Msfvenom. Okay? This is why my AV deletes my Obsidian notes or reverse shells. Yeah, this is why I've gotten more than one person messaging me on Patreon, like all suspicious, going, Al, Mr. Streamer, I downloaded your notes and Windows Defender flagged it. Do you have any reason why that would happen? As if all suspicious as if I put fucking malware in text files? It's literally just markdown files, kids. How am I executing code through markdown? No, seriously, how am I executing code through markdown? Because if you have a way to do that, that'd be sick. It's like, if you have a way, that'd be awesome. My point is, yeah, my hacking notes are all full of malicious strings. Yes. They're full of malicious strings because that's what notes are. That's what hacking notes are, malicious strings. So which kind of detection is that? Which kind of detection is that when people are sending me on Patreon asking me what malware I'm trying to execute on their machines through my markdown files? Yeah, it's signature-based. It's signature-based. Windows Defender is going, hey, there's some PowerShell lines in here I really don't like. It flags on the PowerShell stuff a lot, okay? Yeah, you can scan hacking ebooks and VirusTotal and you'll get tons of results. It doesn't mean anyone's trying to execute code on... it doesn't mean everyone's trying to execute code on your machine. Does that make sense, everybody? Is everybody clear on how antivirus works at a high level? This is a very, very simplified way of discussing how antivirus works at a high level, okay? Good? Okay. So, we're going to now... Let me start up my Windows 10 box. We start up my Windows 10 dev box, and we're going to talk about how Msfvenom and Metasploit, and Msfvenom is part of Metasploit, how Metasploit alone can be used to defeat all of these measures, in Windows Defender specifically, okay? And no, fellas, I'm not trying to hack your machine, through the notes you paid for, okay? Why in the world would I throw malware at people who are paying money for my notes? I wouldn't. Even if I was the worst person ever, I wouldn't do it in such a stupid way. There's way easier ways to do that. Like creating fake cheating software. That, again, I've talked about that guy on stream before. There's a guy who made fake cheating software for Counter-Strike Go. And it was hilarious to watch. It's like every time they throw a grenade, there's a random chance that the grenade just will be thrown right down at their feet and blow them up. Like, stuff like that. Very funny. Very funny stuff. That's the kind of shit I would do if I was interested in making real malware to infect people's machines. That's the kind of shit I would do. I'm not interested in infecting your rinky-dink home masturbation machine 9000, okay? Bet you hacked my brain and desires. Oh, that's so nice of you, Alec. All right, so here is my I still kept the red team ops desktop background, but we can look at Windows Defender really quickly. And we see that real-time protection is set to on. We can check the virus definitions. Last update on 3.6. Let's just update those. So the last update was yesterday. I still have this VM also. Yeah, I mean, it's out of date. It doesn't even get updates anymore. Microsoft has just stopped updating it, except for the antivirus signatures. And I just don't care. Like, it's too much work to set up a whole different dev box. I just need a Windows 10 dev box. It's too much work to set up a whole different one. Okay, we've just updated them. Okay, just updated them. Cloud delivered protection off. Yes, I keep that stuff off. Because I don't want Microsoft spying on... I use this box to, like, test malware and stuff, and I don't want Microsoft using me for free telemetry. Okay, so I have cloud-delivered protection set to off and automatic sample submission set to off. Okay? You should join up with either Pierogi or Jim Browning and get the scammers that target the vulnerable. I was thinking about that. I just don't have freaking time. That is the kind of thing I would do, though. That is the kind of thing that I would get up to if I was interested in like, actually doing, we'll say legally gray stuff. I'm not doing any legally gray stuff. I do not advocate for you doing legally gray stuff. I do not advocate for you breaking the law. This is an ethical community. We're not talking about black hat stuff ever, okay? And technically, that would be black hat, okay? You're taking down people that are bad, but it's black hat still, okay? So we're not talking about any of that, okay? I'm not advocating for that at all. Unequivocally, I denounce it, okay? But if I was interested in being more black hatty, I'm not, and you shouldn't. If I was, that's the kind of thing I would do with it, okay? Okay, real-time protection is set to on. We're going to turn it off for right now. Just so that I can demonstrate something real quick, I'm gonna need to throw I'm gonna need to throw an executable on the machine. I'm just gonna throw it on the machine, and we're gonna see what Windows Defender detects on. Okay? We're just gonna generate a boilerplate Msfvenom executable, and we're gonna see what Windows Defender detects on. And I'm gonna show you how you can tell what specifically Windows Defender is detecting on, with a certain degree of accuracy. Okay? So we can just Mcdir testing or something. Okay. CD testing. Okay. So, Msfvenom, TAC P, Windows x64, Meterpreter. Okay. That'll work fine. TAC F, EXE. So just the most boilerplate stuff possible. This is my... let me start Tmux really quickly. Tmux, new, TAC S, AV, evasion. We'll do lazy AV. Oh my god. This particular song in the Hollow Knight soundtrack causes my blood pressure to rise because I hate the boss it's for so much. I hate him so much. I hate him. He was funny the first time. It was a funny and creative and interesting boss. And then fighting him was such a nightmare that I hated it. That it causes my blood pressure to rise when I hear it. That's neither here nor there. Meterpreter. Let's make sure we're getting the We're making sure we're getting the 64-bit version of Meterpreter. This is a staged version of the payload as well. Change the music and focus. I am focused. Don't worry. Okay. And we can output it to, I don't know, test.exe. Okay. So we're not doing anything special. This is a boilerplate, completely boilerplate executable. Okay? Completely boilerplate. Obviously, Windows Defender is going to detect on this. Obviously. We're going to be talking about what you can do to undo this. Okay? Don't worry. Jumping off, but 100% watching this later. Hey, thanks for being here, Nougats. Okay. So, we've generated... So, let's talk about briefly what Meterpreter is doing when you do this. Okay? What is Meterpreter doing when you do this? Because I think most of you don't know. Okay? What Meterpreter is doing is it's taking a template executable, just a blank template executable that it stores locally. It has a template executable that it uses, and it inserts your shellcode into it. It generates shellcode first. Okay. The payload does shellcode injection. It's taking your shellcode and it's putting it into a standard virtual alloc. It's going to allocate memory in its own process. It's going to copy the shellcode into the memory, and then it's going to execute it. Does that make sense? With create thread. Does that make sense? Those are Windows API calls. My point is that it's injecting shellcode into itself. That's what the default Meterpreter executable does. That's what they all do, honestly. Msfvenom can't. That's all the Msfvenom's executables will do that. Okay? Excuse me. Does that make sense? Let's run Metasploit, because we're gonna have to catch. Okay, we have test.exe here. We can copy test.exe to mount projects. Okay, that's my projects folder, my shared folder. Msfvenom needs more love. Realistically, it's hard to find a tool that does what Msfvenom does. There are very few shellcode generators out there. Honestly, there are very, very, very few of them. Msfvenom is in a league of its own. Is it perfect? No. But it is a tremendously robust tool for which there are basically no analogs. Use exploit multi-handler. Set payload Windows x64 Meterpreter reverse TCP. Set localhost ETH0 for the interface that we're going to listen on. Set local port 8443. That should be fine. Oh, it's the semicolon. Does it not want the semicolon? I thought you could just do all this. There we go. Okay. Maybe you can do the semicolon now, maybe. I thought you could do the semicolons. Alright, fine. I'll do it the slow way. I see people in the Metasploit dev calls doing shit that way. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I learned that from the Metasploit dev calls, okay? I sit in on the Metasploit dev calls now just because I'm curious. And I see them doing stuff like that, and I'm like, well, I want to do that. So I thought I'd do it on the stream to look cool. No, it's not Metasploit Pro. Show options. Okay. So we're going to leave all of these the defaults. Other than we're configuring, obviously, the interface, and we're configuring the port and the payload. Okay? So now we're going to run it on our target. We'll just drop it on the desktop. Okay. Projects. Test.exe. We drop this on the desktop. We execute. We go back. And we get Meterpreter session 1 open. Okay? Very, very simple stuff. All right. Okay, so we see that it executes. I just wanted to make sure that we did it before. Okay, so now we can use a tool called threat check. Okay, this is a tool from Rastamouse. Let's run it as admin, actually, just in case. I don't want it to run into any permissions issues. Okay. Desktop. Okay. So it's in C, Tools, Threat Check, Threat Check, Threat Check. I could send you the GitHub page of Threat Check really fast, and we can see what it actually does. Threat Check, GitHub, Threat Check. Takes a binary from a file, splits it until it pinpoints the exact bytes that target engine will flag on, and prints them to the screen. This can be helpful when trying to identify the specific bad pieces of code in your tool and payload. Now, IPSec was in chat earlier, so I'm going to plug one of his videos here. IPSec has an excellent video on how to do this manually. In which he obfuscates Mimikatz. It's a couple of years old now. They may have more detections. But it's really, really good. IPSec antivirus. Let's see if I can find the video for you really quickly. AV evasion Mimikatz. I think this is it. FireEye. Yeah, this is it. Okay, I'll post this in chat. Deeply recommend you watch this. Essentially, what Threat Check is doing is the same thing that IPSec does in this video, okay? If you want a better understanding of what Threat Check is doing, watch this video from IPSec, and he will break it down for you, okay? What IPSec does is, he obviously Windows Defender detects Mimikatz, right? I want to say Threat Check was based off that video, just a way to automate what I did. I wouldn't be surprised. That's why I'm citing the video, because it's very helpful, first of all. And thank you, by the way. Thank you very much. And also because Threat Check is just an automation of this process. Okay? So what IPSec does is the baseline, he takes the baseline Mimikatz executable. Okay? Baseline executable. And he cuts it in half. And he, obviously Windows Defender detects it. He cuts it in half and sees if which half Windows Defender detects on. Okay? If it detects on the first half, he cuts that one in half. And he looks to see which one of those halves detect from Windows Defender. And he keeps doing that over and over again, working with smaller and smaller bits of the file until he finds the exact thing that Windows Defender does not like. Does that make sense? It's sort of a brute force search for the trigger. You're running it against the AV engine a whole bunch of times and seeing which series of bytes in the file trigger it. Does that make sense? So it can do Threat Check can both do Defender and AMSI. Where AMSI is for like PowerShell scripts. You'd want to do this with like PowerShell scripts. Defender does not require that. So we can just do Threat Check. I think it's bin, debug. And I think it's threatcheck.exe. Okay, and we feed it a file. Test.exe. And look what it's doing. See, it found a threat. Let's scroll back up. So the files are very small. That's one benefit of Msfvenom executables is that they're quite small. Isn't that a type of data sorting? Yeah, I mean, yeah. Meterpreter? Meterpreter is the one? I haven't even heard of that one. Hang on, I'm looking it up. I wouldn't be surprised if he updated it. GitHub? Defender Check. This one right here? I mean, I knew about Defender Check. I've just always used Threat Check. It looks like it does the same basic thing. But it might be being updated more recently. Yeah, it's a little bit more recent. It's a more recent version of it. Oh, it's forked from? Okay, it's all right, yeah. So it's forked from it's forked from threat check. So maybe use this one because it's more recent. Okay? I have to sign in. I'm not signing in. I'm not signing in. Okay? I believe you. Oh, Rasta forked defender check. Okay, gotcha. Okay. Rasta forked it. It's going to make me sign in again. I'm not signing in. I'm not doing it. Okay? Both of these, I'm sure, are quite good. Both of these, honestly, this one, only the license has been updated. So it's about, so threat check is probably more recent. Okay? Very nice. All right, so we ran it. So look what it did here. Let's look at what it did. The file is 7,168 bytes in size. It finds a threat. A threat is found, and then it splits it in half. So now we're working with 3,584 bytes. Okay? And then it was not found, so it made it a little bit bigger, made it a little bit bigger, made it a little bit bigger, until it found a threat. Threat found, and then it splits it again, and it keeps doing that until it can find the place that is flagging it. So this is just a bunch of garbage. This is probably, I'm not sure exactly what this is. It's probably something specific to the default. It's something specific to the default Meterpreter executable. We don't really need to do this. We don't really need to do threat check. I'm only showing you that this file gets flagged in Windows Defender, essentially. What happens if there are multiple triggers? So that's what IPSec finds in his video. So what does is IPSec finds the trigger. He changes it or modifies it in some way so that it doesn't flag anymore, and then runs it against Defender again. Runs the whole file again, recompiles Mimikatz entirely, and then runs it against Windows Defender again. And then if it gets through, then you're good. Otherwise, if it gets flagged, you just repeat the same process again. You repeat the same process to get rid of the next trigger, and you keep doing that until all the triggers are gone. Does that make sense? Sometimes it'll be something as simple as changing a string. Like a lot of IPSec's video, if I remember right, is just the string Mimikatz is bad. And Kiwi. The strings Mimikatz and Kiwi are bad. Because they're both strings that are associated with Mimikatz. So just changing those is enough to go most of the way. And then there's I think he had to alias some function calls or something like that. He had to do something a little bit more spicy for one part of it, but that looks like the default hex output. That's what I was assuming. This is probably just the shell code. This is probably the shell code of Msfvenom is what I was gonna get to. This is probably just the string representation of the shell code, the default Msfvenom shell code. So how can we deal with that? Well, let's look at it again. How can we deal with that detection? Encode it. Good. Fortunately, Msfvenom can encode your shell code, right? Let me go back over here and just copy and paste the exact same command. We're going to be just modifying this command over and over again. This is an antivirus evasion is an iterative process. At the end of this, we're going to end up with a single Msfvenom command that bypasses Windows Defender. I promise you. But I'm showing you the process. I already know what the command is. I did this offline. I'm not just winging it. Okay? I did all of this offline to find a way to do this for you guys. Okay? I already know what the command is and what needs to be done. Shikata Ganai is not going to work. Do you know why? Shikata Ganai is not going to work. Why? Shikata Ganai is the most common Msfvenom shellcode payload. It is polymorphic and therefore somewhat better. It is signatured, yes, but there's a more extreme reason. Why? Yeah, Oreo Bite. Elaborate. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that, Oreo Bite? Shikata Ganai is a 32-bit encoder, not 64. 32-bit encoder, not 64. You can't use fhtagn on 64-bit payloads. Now, if you want to see what encoders Msfvenom has available, you could do that with Msfvenom, tac L for list, encoders. It only works in 32-bit. I always wondered why that was. Because the assembly is different. It's twice as big of memory register memory registers. It's 32-bit is just different than 64-bit, okay? Keeping it as simple as possible for Newbie Tuesday. 32-bit is just different. You see that Msfvenom has a lot more x86, 32-bit. x86 is 32-bit, okay? A lot more 32-bit than 64-bit. With 64-bit, it also has some encoders for like Ruby, for PHP, although this one's just base 64, and for stuff like that. But, so if you run a 64-bit on a 32-bit PC, can you break it? Yes, it will crash. If you try to inject a 32-bit payload into a 64-bit process, it will crash. And that's what we're doing here. We see that there is 64-bit. There's only 4 of them, though. We can grep x64. These are the ones we're working with. So, I think Zuto Dekiru is like the fhtagn of 64-bit. I'm not actually sure. I probably could have looked that up before the stream. It doesn't really matter which encoder we pick. I'm just gonna clue you in. I don't think the 64-bit encoders are as well signatured as the fhtagn one. Zuto Dekiru. Let's find out what this is all about. I don't. I used Zuto Dekiru when I did this offline. But I'm pretty sure it will also work with any of these other ones. Difficult to exploit is basically a DOS? What? Oh, that's just the ranking. Like, what does it do, though? What does Zuto Dekiru... What does it do? Is it like a... It just says Zuto Dekiru in the description. I don't actually know. I'm trying to figure it out for you guys. Inspired by fhtagn. I thought it was like a fhtagn for 64-bit. So it looks like I was correct by that. I know they're both Japanese. I minored in Japanese. I'm aware that they're both Japanese. But I think we'll just use... Which one do you guys want to use? Doesn't matter. I'm pretty sure it doesn't matter, okay? Which one do you guys want to do? Okay, everyone wants to do Zor. Why don't we just do Zor Dynamic and see if it works? God, I hope it does. Holy shit. I did this with Zuto Dekiru offline, but it looks like people want Zor for the memes. Okay, fine. People want Zor for the memes, okay? Everyone wants Zor for the memes. And I think we're just going to add to the same command. Okay, so you can specify an encoder with tac E. And you can also do tac I. What does tac I stand for? And does anybody know off the top of their head? What's the tac I in Msfvenom? Iterations. Yeah. So it's gonna encode your payload multiple times. I don't think this is necessary, but I'm just showing you. Part of the reason we're doing this is to show you how powerful Msfvenom is. Okay? So we can just encode this 10 times. Let's just encode it 10 times. Okay? So we'll see what Msfvenom does here. It's going to generate the shellcode first. The reason most of the time it takes to generate this, is just generating the shellcode. And it's going to encode it 10 times. If you XOR an even number, doesn't it do nothing? It's XORing with a dynamic key, so it's doing a different key every single time. So yeah, yeah. That's a good point. Okay, that's a good thing to point out. If you just do XOR here, that's not going to be great because what happens if you do the regular XOR one 10 times? What happens if you do the regular XOR one 10 times? You're just gonna get the same one. You're just gonna get the same thing. You're XORing it against itself a whole bunch of times. Okay, right. So the dynamic one does it with a different key every time. So notice that these sizes are different every single time. It's not going back and forth. Okay, so we'll just do it. We'll put it in. We'll make it test2.exe, actually, just to keep track of what we've been doing, okay? All right, so everyone following me so far, does anybody have any questions? This is Newbie Tuesday. I don't want to leave anyone out in the lurch. Is anybody confused right now? So it kind of salts it. It's just encoding it. Encoding means it's just changing all the bytes. You can think of it like encrypting it, okay? It's like encrypting it. So XORing means... It's like, you can think of it like encryption. We are changing the payload in a way that when we execute, it's going to look different on disk, but when we execute it, before it actually executes, there's going to be what's called a decoder stub. There's going to be a little snippet of code that's going to execute, and it's going to decode it for us. It's going to decode the payload as it's executing. Okay? That's going to help us bypass signature-based detections. What's the XOR meme? Me and Tiberius had a huge fight over whether XOR comprises encryption. And I guess technically, if you want to be really technical about it, it does technically count as encryption, I think. I prefer not to call it encryption because I think it's dangerous to my clients to call it encryption. Personally. Oh, I forgot to copy it. Whoops. Nobody won either way. We just fought a while about it. It's not a big deal. Copy. We'll just move test2. Test2.exe, mount projects. I think XOR does count as encryption technically. And in fairness to myself, as I've always said, being technically correct is the best kind of correct. There's nothing in the world, like, yeah, sex is pretty great, but you ever been arguing with someone and been told you're technically correct? Like, that's a good feeling is all I'm saying. That's a good feeling. Technically correct is the best kind of correct. And Tiberius, in this case, I think, is technically correct. So, what are we looking for here? If when we run this, let's assume it's going to flag again. It will. But what are we looking for? What are we specifically looking for? When we run this, before I execute it. What are you expecting to see? Yeah, but are you going to see the same one again? Are we expecting to see the same detection again, or a different one? Yeah, it'll probably be a different one. If it was the shellcode, if we were right and it was the shellcode, we'll see a different detection this time. And we do. This is a different part of the payload. This is an entirely different part. Now, it could be flagging on the decoder stub. Some of these decoders have been have had their decoder stubs signatured. This is an entirely different one. See, if I saw this, I would assume it was the shellcode again. I would have assumed it was the shellcode again and we were being flagged on the decoder stub or something like that. We're not going to disassemble it on Newbie Tuesday. Again, this is AV evasion for the lazy. Okay, this is lazy AV evasion. Oh, you know what it could be? I don't think it's that. I don't think it's that. What's the offset? The same? Offset 1BFC. That's a good question. No, it's a different one. It's further into the file. It's further into the file. The offset is how far into the file the detection is. So it's further in. So it's probably not the decoder stub then. It's probably something different. So what might it be? Would it flag on the loader itself, not the shellcode? That's what I'm thinking right now. I'm thinking it probably flagged on the default Meterpreter executable. So what can we do about that? What do we do about that? Encoders only work for a small amount of time? No, that's not true. It's untrue. This encoder will work just fine. It's something else that's flagging on. Change it. What do we change? Because I bet you, you guys don't know that Msfvenom can even do this. Okay, Morpheus glasses. Okay, imagine I'm Morpheus and I'm Morpheus and we're in the movie The Matrix. Okay, what if I told you? What if I told you that Msfvenom can take legitimate executables and backdoor them for you? What if I told you that? Would you believe me? Would you believe me if I told you that Msfvenom can take any executable you give it and backdoor it for you? Yes, that still gets flagged, but yes, it will. But again, this is an iterative process. Yeah, it can. It absolutely can. It absolutely can. And I can show you that. So it's this TAC-X option down here. Specify a custom executable file to use as a template. So by default, what Msfvenom does, you can feed it a binary, a different binary. Yeah, you can't backdoor a signed binary, okay? It will remove the signature. Changing it will remove the signature. That's the point of a signature, okay? But you can take a well-known binary, and also signing your code is a discussion for another time. That'd be more for like the red team discussions. You don't have to do this to bypass Windows Defender. You don't have to talk about signed code. I'm keeping it as simple as possible for this. But you can take a known executable and you can offer it to Msfvenom, and it will use it as a template. Now, the way it can do this is two different ways. The default way, if you supply an executable to Msfvenom, is it's going to overwrite the entry point of the file. It's gonna write your shellcode and your code into a new section of the file, and then it's going to overwrite the entry point of the file, as in the entry point is where the file begins executing, like where Windows goes to begin executing the file at runtime. Does that make sense? It's going to modify the entry point of the file to point to your virtual ALEC-X, shellcode injection, and execute payload. Okay? Now, because it's altering the entry point of the file will not execute the way you would expect it to execute. Okay? It will still look mostly the same with a few added sections, but its entry point will have been modified, and its normal code will no longer execute. Does that make sense? Is everybody following me on that? Okay? So, what if you say, well, Al, I just want it to execute normally and also give me a Meterpreter shell. Can you do that? Surely Msfvenom can't do that, right? Surely Msfvenom can't just write its own code into any executable you give it. Which option is it? This one. preserve the preserve the template behavior, and interject the payload as a new thread. So the file will execute normally. It'll just have an additional thread that's executing that causes that runs your Meterpreter shell. Does that make sense? Everybody following me? Holy shit. Yeah, I guarantee you 90% of you did not know that Msfvenom could do this. I guarantee you. Okay? How does it hide when executed? Is it only the whole binary checked? We're changing the template binary. We think it's flagging right now on the default executable. So we're gonna change the binary and see what it flags on this time. How does it work? DLL injection? No, it just writes its own code into new sections of the file. If you check the file's sections, you'll see it has more sections in the Msfvenom altered one, and then it will create. It'll after the entry point, it'll write in, hey, also start this new thread off on the side. You know, basically, it's not DLL injection. Will that bypass carbon black whitelisting? It might. I don't know. I understand the theory. Does everybody understand this stuff? Okay, does everybody understand what I'm talking about here? The question now is which executable to use. Which executable is best? Now, this is sort of a... I did a number of... this is why I did experimenting offline, because your mileage will vary depending on which executable you choose. I've found that Windows Defender hates its own executables. One of you said the one that actually did work, that I actually did use. But I tried it. I tried it with Notepad. I tried it with Calc. I tried it with a few sysinternals ones. They all got flagged, and I think that's because Microsoft is wise to its own executables being backdoored, and I think they're checking a signature. Modifying the file removes its signature. Okay, the signature will no longer be on it. So if it receives a notepad.exe that's no longer signed, I'm pretty sure that Microsoft is just flagging that outright. Okay? So I'm pretty sure that's what's happening. So what do we choose then? We need an exe that is not a Microsoft one, that is common, that ideally communicates with the internet, and is multi-threaded. I tried Chrome too. Chrome doesn't work for other reasons. Putty! Some of you are on point. Putty! Putty fits all those requirements, doesn't it? Good old putty.exe. And in fact, any of the putty files will work. I also did it with plink. All that stuff. Is putty common? Yeah! I see it on dev boxes all the time. It's on my host right now. Are you kidding me? Putty is ubiquitous. All devs on... if you're a dev and you're working on Windows, you're using putty. Okay? You're using putty. Like, Microsoft has its own SSH.exe these days, but some people are still using putty. And also plink. Plink and the other things in the putty thing. Everyone uses putty. Yeah, I know there is SSH built into PowerShell now, but that wasn't the case up until like a year or two ago. Okay? My point is, putty is still very common. Putty is just... Okay, we're going to go with putty on this one. Because that's the one that I was able to get it to work with. Putty is open source, also people will compile it themselves. Yeah, people still use putty, even though Microsoft has their own version now. We can download putty. So we want the 64-bit x86, this guy right here. We want just the binary file, though, not the installer. So we want this. Okay, putty.exe. Putty.exe, and put it here. Okay, putty.exe. So if we do file putty.exe, we can see it's just a PE. It's a PE executable. Would that work? We're not signing it. Change it. The whole point of a signature is that you're signing the file as it exists, and if the file changes, the signature gets removed. That's the point of the signature. There will be no signature on the file. You'll have to clone a signature onto it, or write a new signature onto it with something like Limelighter, if you want to sign it. It will not be signed. It doesn't need to be signed. I just think Microsoft knows its own executable, so you can't use Notepad or Calc, or any of the sysinternals tools either. So we can do Msfvenom again. Okay, we'll do test3.exe. The NSA receives a massive amount of emails with putty.exe. Yeah, that's pretty funny. So x putty.exe. So we're giving it a new template file, putty.exe, and we're going to do tac k to preserve the behavior. Okay? Is everybody following so far? Let's take a breather for a second. Is everybody following what's going on? Oh, one more thing. I forgot one thing we need to do. So one problem you're going to run into with this file that we just generated is that if we exit Meterpreter, what's going to happen? Let's say this executes inside of Putty and we exit Meterpreter. Or Meterpreter crashes or whatever. Putty is going to exit. Yeah. Putty is going to exit because by default, the exit function of Meterpreter is to kill the process. Okay, you can modify. We want to modify that for best results. So let's just change it to exit function equals thread. Okay. All right. Oh, and we can also do that over on the... I don't think it matters. I think it takes precedence over... We can do it over here as well. Set exit function thread. Okay, so now this is now thread. I think it takes precedence in Msfvenom, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Okay, test3.exe has been written. So let's... move. I should just have Meterpreter write test3.exe into my folder, but whatever. Okay, there we go. Let's see if it executes first. Let's just see what it looks like in action, just for funsies. Okay. So keep in mind, real-time protection is not on. I do not have real-time protection on at the moment, so we can execute it, and Windows Defender will not pick up on it. You'll notice that it still has Putty's icon, doesn't it? I actually have Putty sitting here right here on my desktop. The same icon, but if you look at putty.exe, you look at properties, you see that it has a digital signature from Simon Tatham, who's the developer. Okay? And if we look at test3.exe, a clone of Putty, you can see that there is no signature now. The signature gets removed. So exit func equals thread won't die without migrating. Correct. If you close Meterpreter, Putty will continue to run. Okay, so let's execute it. And look at that. Putty opens up. Putty opens up like normal. No, you can use it like a normal Putty. And looky here. Meterpreter session 1 opened, kids. Cool, right? What do you think about that? Close Putty? Yeah, and we can exit Meterpreter like this, and Putty will still be running. See? Putty's still running. What's the byte size difference? It's probably substantially larger. Let's find out. This regular Putty is 1.57 megabytes. 1.92 megabytes. So, like, 0.4 megabytes larger. If Putty closes, do we lose shell? Yes. You will lose shell if Putty closes. But how can you avoid that? Once you're in a Meterpreter shell, What can you do? Yeah, migrate. Migrate. Inject into a different process, and then if Putty dies, you won't lose your Meterpreter shell. Yeah. Easy. So let's see if it detects on this. Look at that. That's not all. Well, that's not all, though. I'm not done. We're not done yet. We're not done. So we've bypassed the signature-based detections, but let's see if it actually executes. Remember that there are heuristic-based detections that we haven't really tested yet. So let's turn on real-time protection. Okay, real-time protection is now on. Let's go over here. Let's run our listener again. Come here. And it doesn't flag. Really? I actually fully expected it to flag. I'll be damned. That's even better than I've... Oh, but look! Look what's happening! Sending stage. We stuck. What's happening? I just thought it would say it. I just thought it would say, like, Windows Defender found threats. Yeah, heuristics. The stage is getting flagged. Remember we talked about heuristic detections. Getting past signature-based detections. Now, why you gotta do that to me? Why? What? Why you gotta do that to me? Why you gotta be so good? Why you gotta be so good? Alright, I wasn't expecting that. I've tried a lot of antivirus evasion with Meterpreter, and it gets stuck right here a lot. Okay? Alright. But I'm gonna tell you, if you get stuck there, let's pretend it got stuck, okay? Damn it. You ruined it. Tripped at the finish line. It tripped at the finish line, okay? I have one more thing to show you with antivirus evasion, okay? I have one more thing to show you.
What are you doing?
Shut up,
bro.
Yeah, fuck, my exploit works too well. Yeah, yeah. So, how can we modify the heuristics? Yeah, you guys are talking about staged versus stageless. It's not going to matter. Because what it's detecting on is always going to be flagged by both staged and stageless. What is it detecting on? Does anybody know? What do you think it's detecting on? It's okay if you don't know. It is heuristic. It's going to be a heuristic detection. But what is it? Aha! 740i! What is that? What is STD API? That's a lot of letters I don't understand. What is that? What is STD API? It's the standard API. Those are all the functions that you probably associate with Meterpreter. Not the Windows API. It's like Meterpreter's default functionality. It uses the Windows API. Yes, it uses the Windows API, and it's loading all of the functions. Like it's the functions to upload, download files, and the turn on the webcam, and loading Meterpreter extensions, starting shells, sysinfo, get UID, all that stuff. It uses the Windows API to interact with Windows. Does that make sense? It's what gives Meterpreter its power. What up until like a year or two ago, what was being flagged more often than not, I would get past signature-based detections just with a simple encryption thing. But then it would get caught at this sending stage. It would get stuck at sending stage because it gets caught while Meterpreter is trying to load the STD API. It gets caught heuristically while it's running STD, the standard API. Okay? How can you change that behavior? It's actually really simple. Meterpreter has a lot of options that it doesn't show you by default. So you can do show advanced. And you can see it has a number of things it can do here. One of you already mentioned one of them in chat, and that is auto migrate. Prepend migrate. Prepend migrate proc. So you can spawn a new process and inject into that. Can it find? I can't remember. Can it find a... It'll start... the prepend migrate will start a new process in the background and then inject into that. Is that a fork and run? Yes, it is a fork. Well, it's not a fork. It's not a fork. A fork is a copy of the current process. It's starting a new process as a child of this one and then injecting into that process. And then you can also set what process it's going to use. I think it uses Notepad by default. Or it uses... Actually, I think it uses run DLL32. Maybe. I don't know. That's not what we're looking at. We're looking at auto load S standard API. And we see it's set to true by default. Automatically load the standard API extension. So you could just set that to false. Okay. So we've set it to false. So that means Meterpreter will not load its API by default. This is very important. Yeah, it turned out to not be necessary in this particular case. But if you're ever trying to bypass bypass antivirus with Meterpreter, I deeply, deeply, deeply recommend that you disable the standard API loading on default. You can load it later. It's just going to prevent it from loading as Meterpreter starts up. Why does it default to true? Probably because it's easier. So people don't have to remember to load it every single time. We'll see. Meterpreter is very limited without the standard API. You'll see. We'll demonstrate it here. We'll generate another one. I don't think we even need to generate another one. I think it'll still work. It should work. Yeah. But I won't. It should work the same. But we'll see what happens when we generate. If you're trying to, this is one of the most common things. I've known this for years. Disabling the standard API auto load is sort of the first thing you have to do when bypassing antivirus with Meterpreter. Windows Defender doesn't flag on it, but other AVs will, I suppose. Windows Defender should flag on it. I'm actually shocked that it doesn't. Okay, Putty started up normally. We see that we have a connection. It is. You can also try the stageless payload as well. And we get Meterpreter session 4 opened. And now if we do get UID, we see that we don't have the standard API extension. It's going to run get user info, I think. Not get user info. It's going to use get current user. I think it uses the get current user function of the Windows API. So you need to load the standard API. Very, very simple. Meterpreter even tells you how to do it. STD. We'll see what Meterpreter can do without it. You don't have a whole lot of options. You have migrate, which I'm amazed works. You have pivot listeners. I didn't even know we had pivot listeners. Holy shit. Okay. You're pretty. This is a lot less than Meterpreter usually has, right? You can detach. You can background the session. You can't start a shell. I didn't even know they had pivot listeners. That's fucking new to me. Yeah, so we can execute Meterpreter scripts and stuff. We can't do a whole lot, is my point. Load STD API. Okay, now if we run get UID, we see that we get the our user ID here. And if we do help, we'll see that Meterpreter gives us its full normal output of what it can normally do, like interacting with the file system and all that good stuff. Okay, so standard API, file system commands, networking commands, system commands. Okay, does that make sense? So it turned out that for whatever reason, loading the standard API wasn't disabling auto load. I'm actually shocked that's the case, but yeah. So now you have a way on all your Hack-the-Box machines where Windows Defender is active. On all your Hack-the-Box machines where the dreaded Windows Defender is present, Now you know how to generate with just Msfvenom. You don't have to use any special tools. No, nothing. You just use Msfvenom and putty. Other executables will work too. Putty is just the one that I chose to use for this demonstration. Pivot listeners can use SMB protocol to communicate, or just a regular TCP connection. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Pivot listener usually means that Meterpreter is going to set up a listener for Metasploit on its own machine. So it could probably listen on. I don't think it can listen on 445 though, not on Windows, because the SMB process is listening on that port. So you won't be able to do that. It's just going to be a TCP port forward, a reverse TCP port forward, essentially. You can use Msfvenom on the OSCP, correct? You can use Msfvenom unrestricted. Msfvenom's use is unrestricted, but Meterpreter is limited. Meterpreter is limited to one machine. You can only use Meterpreter on one machine, if I understand the current rules correctly. Does it bypass cloud protection? I don't know. Don't know. I just tested it against modern current Windows Defender. Can you try it with a small homemade exe? Why? The whole point of backdooring an executable is that you make an executable look like putty and then execute it, and then you have Meterpreter. If you really wanted to be sexy with it, here, you could use. Why don't we? Do you want to do a little bit more experimentation? Do you want to see how the? Do you guys want to see like how the auto migrate works? Why don't we just see how the auto migrate works, just for funsies? Let's just see how the auto migrate works. Show advanced, just for funsies. This isn't necessary for antivirus evasion. I'm just now curious. Load the unhook. It can also unhook. Incredible. I did not know Meterpreter could do this. When did they add this? What? When did they add this? Unhooking is not something that's a discussion for a red team stream. But I didn't know Meterpreter could do that. That's been this whole journey. I did this a couple of nights ago as a whole ass journey, and I was like, God, I didn't even know Meterpreter could do this stuff. Like, this is nutty. Like, pivot listeners are a Cobalt Strike thing. It looks like they copied off of Cobalt Strike. Prepend migrate. Okay, let's set prepend migrate to true. Well, I'm curious what process it's going to migrate into. Let's see how it works. Let's just like, again, this is just for science. I'm just actually curious what process it's going to migrate into. Imagine Metasploit Pro. I still need to get a license for Metasploit Pro so I can show it to you guys. Yes. Oh my godness. We have Island Hugger with the 12 months. Brian Papp with the first time Bezos indoctrination. Welcome in, my friend. Susvaris with a enormous 29 months. Insane. Would this red team stream include client-side exploits Kappa? Well, we wouldn't be doing them on boxes. Yeah, I could do phishing payloads. Sure, we could definitely do phishing payloads on a red team stream. That's totally cool.
A hunter must hunt.
Tiberius with the 18 months. Trash Puppy, thanks again for the raid. The Crabby Old Man with the 10 months. Night Stalker with the first time Prime indoctrination. Welcome into the All Haas red team, my friend. Thanks for supporting the stream. Do Work with the 16 months. Nefarious with the 15. MSEC with the raid. Thank you so much for the raid. I'm sorry if I missed it. Brackets with the first time Bezos indoctrination, and Susvaris sinking into the lunacy with 10 new cult initiates. My goodness. 215 subs. That is mind-boggling to me. 215 subs. I'm so grateful, Susfaris. Thank you so much. Blue teamers in chat finding out how shitty a modern AV is. They already knew, my dude. Are you kidding me? They already knew. Blue teamers know as potently as anyone how shitty modern antivirus is. Most modern antivirus is still signature-based. Endpoint protection is sort of antiviruses, like, taken to the next level, like Charmander evolved into Charizard sort of situation. But endpoint protection is a discussion for another time. Endpoint protection requires substantially more sophisticated techniques to bypass. If modern AV was good, you cannot. I don't think that these techniques I showed you here would bypass too many endpoint protection products. There might be one or two out there that it would get past, at least at first. But if you started actually doing things with Meterpreter, I imagine you get it killed. You'd be surprised what still gets caught. There's some dumb adversaries. Listen, most adversaries are not your big brain red team AP or APT. Most adversaries are doing what I call a smash and grab. They're just trying to get their shit done, like ransomware machines or steal data, and they're trying to get it done as quickly and efficiently as possible. And they're just hoping to move so fast that you don't have time to stop them. Like that's what the average attacker is doing. The average cyber criminal, the ransomware gang, and so on. These actors are, by and large, not terribly sophisticated. Ransomware is not hard to write, and it's not hard to learn a few commands to move laterally with WMI and so on and so forth. These threats are not terribly sophisticated. It doesn't take much to have a ransomware gang, okay? The average adversary out there is just running cmd.exe/c, PowerShell IEX, all the usual stuff that you see. Like all the stuff that we use in CTFs and say that this would never work on a red team. Red teams are trying to emulate more advanced threats. So let's see. Let's get PID. Oh, right. We have to load the STD API. Okay. Let's get PID to see what process ID we're in. So we're currently in 3424. We can do PS to see the processes. 3424. Let's see what it is. We did not migrate. Excuse me. I did prepend migrate, sir. Maybe I have to set... Do I have to set the executable for it to migrate into? I haven't done this in a really long time. I remember I used to do prepend migrate, and I don't remember how. Maybe there's more to it. Hang on a second. Metasploit. Let's do Meterpreter. Prepend migrate. Let's see if there's more to it. I'm just curious. Option allows us to link our session with an ongoing process in the target system. We can also transfer a section by linking it from one process to another. So do I have to regenerate it, I wonder? Prepend migrate process. Prepend migrate equals true. Maybe we need to specify it. Display framework. Okay, no, so you can do that. But maybe you have to set prepend migrate process. So we'll set it to explorer.exe. Process to spawn. Okay. Let's try it that way. Let's see if it'll migrate. Okay. Load standard API. Get PID. 6952. And we're still in explorer.exe. Or we're still in test.exe. We're not in Explorer. Huh. Generate nisha.exe. Oh, it's still generating the executable. So I guess you need to set it in when generating the file. So let's set it while generating the file and see if that helps. Okay, prepend migrate equals true. Explorer.exe. Oh shit. I meant to change the name of the file. Let's output to mount projects. Just to save myself from having to move it over. Was Explorer open? It's always going to be open, but if I understand the behavior correctly, it should start a new Explorer process and then inject into it. I used to say the best hackers are those you never hear of. Government hackers can be inside of a network for months without getting cut. Yeah, exactly. So, who are the most sophisticated APTs on the planet? If you think of a like a country that's hacking everybody, who do you think of? Which countries do you think of? Okay, well, Lord Gucci Fur and Dodo Fett are some of you know where I'm going with this, okay? You're thinking of Israel, Iran, Russia, China, North Korea. You're thinking of all those bad countries, right? Right? You know which country you don't hear about? Do you know which country who definitely is hacking literally goddamn everyone, but you don't hear about? Yeah, the USA! The good country, if you will. I'm saying that facetiously. Because the USA is just as bad. We're just more sophisticated. So imagine, the way I used to put this back in the day, by back in the day, I mean like, I don't know, 3 years ago. The way I used to say is, what if every country had like its own version of a ninja, and the Japanese were just the worst at it because those were the ones that were famous. Like, wouldn't a ninja, a true ninja, be completely unknown to everybody? You know, that's what I'm trying to say. Hopefully that makes sense. It's just one of those stupid idle thoughts you have one day while you're driving. Does that make sense? Like, hopefully that makes sense. But that's what the USA is. That's what the USA is. The United States is the ninja you don't know about. It's the sophisticated ninja who no one knows about. If you need proof of that, look up Stuxnet sometime. Go on down that rabbit hole. And then, once you're down the Stuxnet rabbit hole, ask yourself, find out why Stuxnet got caught. Why did Stuxnet get caught? Yeah, Israel. We were working in tandem with Israel, and Israel wasn't satisfied with Stuxnet's progress. So Stuxnet had a mechanism. Stuxnet was a ridiculously sophisticated piece of malware, an absolutely mind-bogglingly sophisticated piece of malware. This wasn't something that I could cook up in any amount of time. It was created by a team of like geniuses, like a team of like 30 geniuses within the NSA. It's a mind-bogglingly sophisticated piece of malware. The skeleton of which is still used today. Okay? But Stuxnet got caught because Israel was working in tandem with us. Stuxnet was a cyber weapon to disrupt Iran's nuclear program. Okay? If you have never heard of Stuxnet, if you've never looked into it, deeply recommend. There's 1,000 ways online that you can read all about Stuxnet, and it's a super fascinating rabbit hole if you're interested in cybersecurity at all. Okay? So deeply recommend you go down that. But the reason Stuxnet got caught is Stuxnet, Stuxnet. The reason Stuxnet got caught is because Stuxnet had a mechanism to patch itself. Okay? And we patched it because Israel told us to, because they wanted it to spread more quickly. And because Israel modified it in progress to make it more infectious, it spread outside of its intended target and got detected by the overarching security community. And that's what originally got it detected. Otherwise, it would have sat undetected for much, much longer. Because the United States, the NSA, is as good, and I don't say this because I am American. I say this because it is almost certainly objectively true. The NSA is the most sophisticated group of hackers that exist in the world today. They are mind-bogglingly sophisticated, and you know they're sophisticated because they have their fingers in every world government around the world, I guarantee it. And you never hear about it. Part of that is because of, propaganda. Because USA is the good country, and there are bad, and everyone else who isn't the USA is the bad country. Five Eyes are the good countries, in fairness. But that's a different discussion. The point is that the United States is the most sophisticated country out there, as far as hacking capabilities. So, like, just to wrap your head around the amount of resources that were behind Stuxnet. Stuxnet was digitally signed with a well-known software developer's certificate. How did they get that? Stuxnet was digitally signed. They got it by hacking into that organization and stealing their key. And then a derivative of Stuxnet, a piece of spying malware called Flame, was digitally signed by Microsoft. How did Microsoft sign it? I'll give you a hint. They didn't break into Microsoft to get it. What else did they do you think? What did they do to get it signed by Microsoft? Not bribery. No, didn't need to. No. Do you know what a hash collision is? Do you guys know what a hash collision is? So a hash collision, the whole point of a hash is that you hash some piece of data and it produces a unique string of hexadecimal, unique binary string of the same length every single time. And it's unique. A hash collision is when that mechanism breaks down and two different inputs produce the same hash. Doesn't that take years? What if you have supercomputers with nation-state funding? If you're a nation-state, access to a supercomputer that allows you to produce a hash collision is not out of the realm of possibility. And that is what they did. They digitally signed with a fake Microsoft certificate that would have read as real because it would have hashed the same. The NSA not only has incredibly smart people, geniuses working for them, they also have the funding of the most wealthy country on the planet. They are able to perform feats that are incomprehensible to you. Like, the things that they are doing right now, this second, is like Stuxnet used 4 0 days. 4 0 days. Do you know how many hackers have used even 1 0 day? Fucking extremely few. The ones who discovered the 0 day. Like, nation states just buy these. They buy these 0 days on the black market and hoard them. That's what the United States does. That's what the Shadow Brokers was. The Shadow Brokers leak is what gave us Eternal Blue, which up until then was a 0 day that the United States government knew about. They also own parts of the U.S. internet backbone? I'm sure they do. They're called the Equation Group, by the way. They're called the Equation Group. That's their APT name. Their APT name is the Equation Group. If you think about, from a cybersecurity perspective, if you think about the United States, the NSA as an APT, this is how they tell me the world ends. I have that on audiobook. I just haven't listened to it yet. I need to listen to it. Okay, so let's see if we can get this migrate working. Prepend migrate, true. Prepend migrate proc is explorer. Okay. And then I was gonna come over here. Again, those of you who don't know about Stuxnet or Flame or any of the known the Shadow Brokers leaks or anything like that, just read up on that. It's a super fun rabbit hole. And if you define fun as imagining the horrifying things that the NSA is probably capable of, then yes, it's very fun. Very, very fun. Yeah, Ghidra, which is basically a staple of reverse engineering, they gave us for free. And it's like an open source version. I'm sure theirs is more sophisticated. But the things the NSA that we know about that the NSA has done are baffling. Imagine what we don't know about. But it's because, again, keep in mind, not only do they have ridiculously intelligent people working for them, but they also have the funding of the most wealthy nation on the planet. Yeah, I know they're overflowing. I moved the chat box to match the... Yeah, I know. Let's just move it a little bit. I moved it to... I might resize the... Can I make this any smaller? Yeah, I'll make it slightly smaller. There we go. There we go. NSA tweeted the other day asking people how we feel about using Ghidra. Who knows? Ghidra might even be backdoored. They might be collecting telemetry from it. I wouldn't be surprised. Let's get PID. I don't mean to scare you guys, by the way. I just think it's really fun to think of. Fun is a weird way to put it, but I think it's interesting to think about what they are capable of and what they are up to at this moment. Like, here's what I think about. Okay, so with wireless testing. Okay, what you note about with wireless testing is that the bigger your antenna is, the more wireless networks you can reach, right? Does that make sense? Like, if you have a big enough antenna, you can reach a wireless network anywhere on the planet. You can reach a wireless network further and further away. Does that make sense? So what if you built a giant antenna and put it in space? They could reach your wireless network from space. I'm not saying they've done this. I don't know. Even if I did know, that would be at the highest possible classification level. There's no way I'd be saying that on stream. I don't know. This is only something I've speculated about. Because, you do wireless assessments and you think about, well, I want a bigger antenna. And then your mind automatically just goes to, what if I had the biggest imaginable antenna and I could reach anything on the planet? Oh, and then what if I put it in space? Does that make sense? My Wi-Fi uses WEP, so I'm safe. Yeah, there you go. My point is, if you're paranoid, that's the kind of crap that you think about, okay? Theoretically, if you had a large enough antenna and put it in space, it could reach any wireless network on the planet, provided the Earth was not in the way. Any wireless network on the planet that was facing it. Does that make sense? Theoretically. I'm not saying they've done that. I don't know if they have. And even if I did, I wouldn't tell you. It's just something I've speculated about, okay? Yeah, the FBI is coming in right now. He knows too much. I don't actually know. This is not me spouting any kind of classified information that I'm aware of. This is just me speculating that if you just had a big enough fucking antenna, you could just put it in space. Get PID. PS 3364. Yeah, now we're in explorer.exe. Okay? Now we're in explorer.exe. So you need to set it on the executable. Okay? This is all for a fiction book? Oh, yeah, it's totally speculative, you know, completely speculative. So we figured out how to do the prepend migrate, so we're in explorer.exe now. Note that test4.exe is still running. Your putty is still running. It's just you won't lose Meterpreter if you close putty. And I can prove that by closing putty. There you go. And we still have our Meterpreter shell. Okay? There you go. So that's how you do prepend migrate. That's how you generate the payload right there. I'll paste the command in chat if you want to play around with it. There's the command in chat. Oh, it has my paths. You're gonna have to replace the paths. But there you go. Shin Risen. I don't know why I'm saying Ryzen. It's obviously Risen. Shin Risen. With how many subs? How many? 10 more subs. My goodness. 10 new gifted subs. Thank you so much, Shin Risen. Subliminal Clan, Miyagi, Shakes Technologies, Mythland, Elnarubi, Rediler, Element 1G, Orlin the Mage, Ipsec has been indoctrinated even. Yellowfin, welcome to the All Has Red team. Thanks for supporting the stream, fella. I've never said fella before in my life. But yeah, I've said it for you, Shin Risen. You're now fella. Would this payload work against the NSA? Very likely no. I did work for the NSA for a period, and I can't tell you what their infrastructure was like, but I can tell you this: it would be a challenge to compromise them. Is all I'm saying. I don't feel like I'm releasing any classified information by just saying it's going to be a challenge to compromise the NSA. Okay. Not saying no one has. It very well may be the case that someone may have. But I know what their infrastructure looked like at least 4 years ago-ish. And I can tell you it'd be difficult. FBI, open up! Snowden kind of did. He probably did know some. He wasn't really all that technologically sophisticated, really. I'm not saying that what he revealed wasn't poignant. It was. But it doesn't really help his case that he immediately ran to Russia, of all places. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to get on the Snowden hole here. Didn't you watch Transformers? Yes, I watched the movie in which the robot zapped a computer, and then the computer did whatever he asked forever. Like, that was hacking in the Transformers movie. Actually, I think that was the second Transformers movie, if I remember right. The one with the little robot that, crawled in there and, zapped the computers and could get him to do whatever it wanted. And all the computers would instantly do whatever he wanted. Didn't he run to China and then aim for Ecuador and miss? I don't remember. I honestly don't. I'm not going to go down the Snowden rabbit hole. Everybody has a different opinion on Reddit on Edward Snowden. I think that, like with many things, the reality is somewhere in the middle. I don't like that he ran off to... I don't trust that he ran off to Russia immediately, because Russia is one of the nation's adversaries, and I don't like Russia. Russia is bad. Even if I was not being poisoned by U.S. propaganda all the time, Russia is bad. Free Ukraine, all of this. Little robot humping on Megan Fox's leg. I'm pretty sure that was the one, yeah. That little guy, that I don't remember. I haven't seen the second Transformers in forever. Going to Russian wasn't his original intention. I would hope not. Again, I think the reality of Snowden is somewhere in the middle. He's not like a absolute villain that was looking to sell our secrets to the highest bidder, and he wasn't like a saint. He wasn't a saint that was looking to uphold freedom and democracy and call out the NSA and all that good stuff. It's somewhere in the middle. It's a little combination. It's somewhere in the middle there, okay? Are CTFs a good place to learn web hacking for beginners? Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. Can you show a quick persistence via Meterpreter? Well, let's see. What persistence options does Meterpreter give us? Let's find out. Help. Do we have persistence options? I'm not sure if there are built-in persistence options with Meterpreter, but let's find out. Meterpreter has a lot of functionality that we're not going to go into here, like stealing tokens. It also has a bunch of modules. Can we like? There's like a whole bunch of There's like Mimikatz. Load one or more Meterpreter extensions. There might be a persistence extension. Let's do load tech L. PE injector. Incognito is for token theft. Boff loader? We're doing boffs now too. Jesus. Okay. Priv. LAN attacks. Kiwi. Kiwi is Mimikatz. XT API? What is that? Let's find out. ADSI. Wow. So we have domain enumeration stuff. WMI queries. We can dump the clipboard. We can dump the clipboard. Let's do that. Out of curiosity. Let's see how that works. Like, so if I go into Notepad here and I do Cthulhu phtagn. This is now a Meterpreter exploration stream, apparently. But I'm happy to answer what questions you guys have. There's a lot of persistence options. I'm just looking to see if Msfvenom has, or if Meterpreter has options. Clipboard get data. Let's do that. We'll probably need to be in a session 1 process, but I believe we are in a session 1 process. It did not say. Write text to the target clipboard. Clipboard set text hello from Meterpreter. Just do it a couple times just to be safe. That's kind of funny. That's kind of fun. I don't know what possible function. I don't know what function that has, but it's cool. I didn't even know it could do this. We're exploring Meterpreter stuff here. And there it is. We got it to collect the data that time. So that's cool. I didn't even know Meterpreter could do that. Service management. Oh, here we go. This is how you could do persistence. So you could just create a new service. It looks like can you create a service? We can start one, pause, resume, stop, or restart. Enumerate all services or query about services. So this is like for enumeration. Like if you were doing this would help you for Hack the Box for sure. Cryptojacking. Oh yeah, you absolutely could do cryptojacking with that. Enumerate all current open windows. You can see all the windows I have open here. PowerShell is open. I've got my, this is my projects. This is my mounted folder. We've got Notepad open. And there's, this says Chrome widget, but it's actually Edge. It's actually open in Edge. And you can see a bunch of windows that are hidden or parts of other windows. Do you have any sources on Privesk for noobs, or could you stream one? Yeah. Tiberius, are you in chat? Tiberius has some excellent rooms on TryHackMe, and also courses for Windows and Linux-based privilege escalation. He has TryHackMe. He has TryHackMe rooms, one for Windows and one for Linux, if I remember right. And he also has courses that you can pay for a more in-depth, feature-rich. Yeah, I'll let him give that to you. He knows his own stuff. Right now, we're just exploring Meterpreter. WinPmem. What is that about? Load WinPmem. Dump RAM. Dump victim RAM. Can I dump like LSAS? Oh, it's dump underscore. Failed to load the driver. Well, I'm not sure what that's about. We're now just exploring Meterpreter and trying to see what we can get up to. Priv. Let's find what that's about. Load priv. Help. Dump the contents of the SAM database. I think we need to do get system to do that. Yeah, we have to do get system. The following was attempted. Windows Defender is probably blocking that, I would say. Did we get a flag from Windows Defender? Nope, no current threats. Nope, nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. Nothing whatsoever. Oh, also Tiberius streams, yes. So it has a lot. It has Prince Spooler. It has name pipe impersonation. That's its standard one that it's had forever. Manipulate file mace attributes. So this lets you change the timestamp of a file. That's pretty cool. Which is helpful for evasion. Excuse me. Let's find out what this is about now. Inject shellcode into a given executable. We're already doing that. What's Espia? Screen grab? So we can get a screen grab. Let's do that for funsies. Looky there. That's neat. A screenshot. I mean, I think Meterpreter by default can do screenshots, but I didn't know it just opened it for you, too. That's pretty cool. So when it comes to persistence, there are a number of really easy persistence methods. The startup folder is the quickest one. Yeah, you can turn the webcam on and stuff like that. Sniffer. Packet cat. Oh, this lets you just sniff on an interface. That's cool. That's helpful. Just learning. Unhook. I assume that's going to unhook. Unhook the current process. So what does unhooking do? I don't know if I want to go into that on Newbie Tuesday. Yep, we got 0 means an error code of 0 means it finished correctly. So we didn't really need to unhook. It doesn't accomplish anything in this case. Unhooking is something you do for EDR evasion. Not really. It's something you can do for EDR evasion. I wouldn't say it correlates with best practice. Personally, I would say that unhooking is risky. At absolute best, it is risky. Yes, it will prevent the EDR at least temporarily, from being able to detect on your operations. Is it a .NET thing? No, it's an all thing. It's for everything. Unhooking. Okay, so let me see if I can describe this at a very high level. So there's a Windows API. Okay, Windows has an API that's basically just an abstraction of like system calls. When you're working in Linux and want to interact with the kernel, if you want to interact with the kernel, you have to do what's called system calls. Okay? I'm trying to explain it in a newbie sense. Interacting with the kernel is done through system calls. Okay? Making syscalls is difficult, and Windows changes them all the time. So, in order to allow executables to work across more than one version of Windows, Windows has what's called an API, which is basically a bunch of functions that exist as part of the Windows operating system in various DLLs in System32 that programs can use that just make system calls on they're abstractions of system calls. They're simple abstractions of system calls. Does that make sense? Is everyone following me so far? I know it's complicated. You don't need to know this. But people keep asking in the chat about what unhooking is, so I'm explaining it. At least at a high level. There is an API that all programs use, basically all programs use, to interact with the Windows operating system. Okay? The way EDR works is by hooking those API calls. This is one reason that EDR is so much more capable on Windows, because malware on Linux needs to make system calls, and the EDR cannot hook system calls, but it can hook functions that are calling system calls on the below them. So what does a hook mean? A hook means that whenever you make a call that is hooked, whenever you call like create remote thread, most EDRs will hook create remote thread. So let's take create remote thread, for example, because it's a API call that's used in process injection. Another one that is almost hooked every time is mini dump write dump. But we'll talk about create remote thread to keep it simple. So when you call create remote thread, the EDR has replaced the instructions of the API call with a jump to itself. So in order to execute, basically, to put it simply, the EDR has told the operating system, hey, if anybody wants to execute that function, you need to tell me about it. I don't want to start going into jumps. We're not going to talk about assembly. This is Newbie Tuesday. I'm putting it as simply as possible. So EDR has gone to the operating system and said, hey, if anyone executes that function, I want to know about it first. Does that make sense? And Windows goes, you got it, boss. And so every time a process tries to call that function, Windows goes to the EDR and says, hey, I got this process test4.exe that's trying to execute create remote thread. What do you want me to do with it? Does that make sense? Is everybody following me? Yeah, it's like a layer. It's like the EDR is set itself between you and the call you want to make. So it knows when you're making the call. And it can decide if you're doing it in a suspicious way. Yeah, like a wiretap. And if it detects that what you're doing is suspicious, it will either flag an alert or it will kill the process or both. Okay? Is everybody following? At a very, very high level? Unhooking is undoing that. Unhooking is undoing what EDR has done to force itself in the middle like that. Does that make sense? So you're basically going to Windows and say, you don't actually need to go to the EDR. You can just we're good, right? We're good, right? Me, you, we're good. Like you're going to Windows and going, yeah, we're cool, right? We're cool. You don't have to bother the EDR with this. That's what unhooking is. Does that make sense? So why would that not be bad? Why would that potentially be a risky thing to do? Why would that potentially be a risky thing to do? Let's say I unhook the process successfully. I can make the calls. And EDR does not detect me making the calls. Yeah, it's a little sussy-wussy. What if the EDR comes back to the process later and goes, "Hey, notice I'm not getting any calls from you. What's going on?" And then the process goes, "Oh, they came to me and said that I don't actually have to go to you." Is EDR going to find that suspicious? Is EDR going to find it suspicious if it comes and talks to the process and discovers that its hooks are gone? Yeah. Yes, it 100% will. And it will probably alert on that too. EDR can A, detect that their hooks have been changed, and B, replace them. Put them back. So unhooking is probably, with some EDR products, unhooking is only temporary. And then once it wears off, the EDR is going to detect you. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? I don't intend to get into EDR evasion today, okay? EDR evasion is a more advanced discussion intended for more advanced streams. But hopefully I was able to explain that at a high enough level that it made sense. Copy the putty binary seems to fail if putty wasn't already installed on the machine. No, you have to download the binary. You have to download the standalone binary. You don't want to copy it out of its installation folder. No, the installed version is different. You want the standalone binary. There's a standalone putty binary. You want the standalone putty binary. What permits this temporary circumventing? We're not going into that, okay? I don't want to get too deep into it, okay? The short version, the short answer to that question is that system calls happen through a one single DLL called NTDLL. You've probably heard of it. It's called NTDLL. NTDLL contains a lot of APIs that you aren't supposed to interact with, because they're lower level versions of the API calls you're supposed to actually interact with. But it's usually those functions in NTDLL that are actually making the system calls. And it's those functions that EDR usually hooks. Like when EDR hooks create remote thread, it's not hooking create remote thread directly. It's hooking NT create thread EX, which is the native API in NTDLL. That is actually being called by NT create thread. I know we're getting too complicated now. Too complicated. The point is that Windows put all of the system call APIs in one DLL, and that's the one that EDR decides to hook. Can you confuse the EDR by calling a lot of garbage API calls with the malicious one? Yeah. Sure you can. There's lots of ways to evade EDR. EDR is not a perfect system. I was able, CrowdStrike is the one I would say that is most sophisticated. At least I have the most trouble with it. As far as executing a payload, I have the most struggle with CrowdStrike. I think that's because of the kinds of payloads I like to execute. I like to do process injection, and for various reasons. And CrowdStrike really hates process injection. It really hates it. It will crack down on most versions of process injection. But I'm not going to tell you my secrets. But I have done stuff like that. IDIN, ED. Is it IDINED? IDINED? I've done stuff like that to bypass EDR. I did something like that on my most recent assessment. Calling all the normal API calls, but doing it in a way which EDR does not expect. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. I can't tell you my secrets, unfortunately, on stream. I would love to be able to tell you my secrets. The problem is I don't want CrowdStrike to catch on to them. I want my payloads to execute the next CrowdStrike assessment I get on. Does that make sense? Do you have any videos anywhere that loosely cover Reanimator? No. No, absolutely not. I don't want... I want Reanimator to function for as long as possible. I'm working on a second version of Reanimator. right now, like an entirely with more capabilities like signing code and so on. Are there any good resources for EDR evasion or how EDR does API detections? I recommend CRTO2 for you for that one, my dude. Certified Red Team Operator 2 from Rostamaus. If you sign up for it, it's relatively cheap as far as courses go. If you sign up for it, use my API code or use my affiliate code and I'll get a small commission. But Rostamaus teaches you all about how EDR works in CRTO2. CRTO1 doesn't have any EDR evasion in it. CRTO2 has a lot of EDR evasion. The reality of red teaming today is that EDR is omnipresent. You're almost always gonna be up against EDR, and you need to be able to fight it. You need to be able to fight it. But that's not a conversation for beginners. That's something that only red teamers really have to worry about. So, cool stream. Yeah, thanks, my man. Is this gonna be on YouTube? Yep, it will be. Does anybody else have any questions, things they want to talk about? I expected to have time to do some Try-Hack Me today, but looks like we found enough things to do to fill the time. So we'll do Try-Hack Me. Actually, hey, Tiberius, what was that cool box you told me to do? There was a cool box that Tiberius told me to do because he did it on stream and he really enjoyed it. Second? Yeah, that sounds right. We'll do that on Thursday. We'll do second on Thursday. I've heard good things about that. This has been super enlightening. I hope it has been. I think it was a fun stream. I'm trying to branch out in my content a little bit. I want to bring you guys more straightforward educational content rather than just doing CTFs all the time. Does this work for you? Did you enjoy this? People are going to enjoy different things. But I'm trying to bring you stuff. I'm trying to bring you things. A more of a variety is all I'm trying to say. So we're not just kind of doing the same stuff over and over again. This was a nice change for sure. I'm glad. I'm really glad. I was curious about how this was going to go, and it seems like everything went pretty well. You're going to have any beginner boot camp soon? I'm working on one course already. I don't have time for a second course yet. This was awesome as a beginner. Hopefully it was parsable, cyber student. Hopefully I explained things at a low enough level that you could understand them. But if I didn't, make sure to ask questions. Reach out to me on Discord if you have further questions. Everyone can always reach out to me on Discord. I'm always available to answer questions. I may not answer right away. Sometimes I'm bad at answering if I'm not paying attention to Discord. But I will always answer at some point. Are you planning something like this stream but for Linux? Yeah, absolutely. I'm planning to do like... one of the things I'd like to do for a red team stream is investigating WSL for like red team tradecraft. Like... WSL was fired across my brow in my last assessment where I compromised a developer machine who had WSL installed, and I used it to dump Chrome passwords because CrowdStrike did not catch it. CrowdStrike was catching me accessing the Chrome passwords, or at least I suspected that it would. I did not try. But CrowdStrike, I know, is pretty good about detecting that kind of thing. But I did it from WSL, and it worked just fine. I did it from WSL with a Python script, and it worked amazingly. And I was able to dump all their Chrome passwords. And by the way, this was... I can't tell you what the passwords were, but it was a who's who of shitty-ass passwords. It was every bad password practice all at once. Password reuse, simple word followed by a year, season followed by a year. The gang was all here, okay? The gang was all there. The other guy, I compromised two machines that I did this on. And, if you don't know, I didn't have to use rocku.txt. When I say dump Chrome passwords, I don't mean hashes. I mean that the hashes that are in your Google Chrome right now, I mean those password hashes in your Google Chrome can be trivially extracted from your from Google Chrome with a simple Python script, and also with Sharp Chromium. And if you didn't know that, I would encourage you to familiarize yourself with that. Is it on GitHub? Oh my god, there's 1,000 ways. You can just Google it. I mean, if you want, I'll make a YouTube video on it at some point. Firefox too, but Firefox has an additional measure you can put in by default called a master password, which will encrypt your password vault. Google also encrypts your passwords. Your passwords are not just sitting in plain text on your hard drive. Don't worry about that. Your passwords are not just sitting in plain text on your hard drive. They're protected by the data protection API, which means that if I have a session if I have a session on your machine, I can use I can use the data protection API to decrypt them, but only if I'm in a session as you and or I have your password. Okay? That's the way. How do you protect against it? You use Firefox and you implement a master password. Firefox has a master password system where you can protect your password vault by encrypting it with a master password like a password manager. And I know many of you in chat are like, these jokers who use Chrome, not like me who uses Brave. Oh, imagine using Chrome in the year of our Lord 2023. Brave is based on Chrome, you charlatan. The same thing applies to Brave. It's just in a different folder. Edge, Brave, and Chrome are vulnerable to all that same shit. Edge, Brave, and Chrome function on the same system. That's not the reason I don't use Chrome, by the way. I do use Chrome. You can see it if you've looked at the desktop on my PC enough. Chrome is on. I do have Chrome. But I use, for my daily browsing, I use Firefox. What do you use to sign your droppers? I use it. Good question. I do sign my code. I do sign my code. And this is and I'll show you what I use. Good question. So when it comes to EDR evasion and also AV evasion, one thing that can really help you is signing your code. What does signing your code mean? It means ideally you're taking a known certificate that's released by a certificate authority and by a trusted certificate authority, and you're signing your code so that when another machine looks at it and it says that, oh, this was signed by Microsoft, let me execute it. Surely the NSA hasn't created a hash collision of Microsoft's key and used it to create a fake certificate that would nevertheless seem legitimate. Like, okay, yeah, we're not exploiting hash collisions, okay? I'm not the NSA. But you don't have to. For EDR evasion, I find that just having your code signed is enough, even if the signature is illegitimate. And for that reason, what I use is a tool called Limelighter. So what Limelighter does is it generates a fake code certificate based on any arbitrary domain name you want to put in. Okay, I usually use Google. Don't use Microsoft. Well, you can if you want. I don't recommend it. At least against Microsoft. I at least don't recommend it against. I don't recommend it against CrowdStrike, and I don't recommend it against Windows Defender for Endpoint. Both of those seem to check Microsoft certificates. But if you check a Google certificate, if it's signed by, basically what Limelighter does is it's just going to make a fake Google certificate and call it google.com and slap it on your code. That's it. That's all it's going to do. And believe it or not, that improves my detections. That simple act makes my code more evasive. Because I think me and my colleagues have speculated on why this is, but most EDR doesn't seem to check certificates. My guess is because it's too much of a performance hit. It just checks. It'll check to see if the code is signed. It'll check to see if it's signed, and it'll be a little bit more trusting of it if it is signed. But it does not check to see if that certificate is legitimate. if that makes sense. It doesn't do the legwork required to check their certificate. Does that make sense? And I think that's I speculate that it's because it's too much for performance hit, but I don't know that for sure. Anyway, this tool is the one that I use to sign my code. Any other questions? Yeah, it's kind of the illusion of free choice. A lot of the biggest browsers are built on Chromium. If you wanted a unique browser, you need to use Firefox, Opera, and what else? Safari? Safari, yeah. Yeah, how to learn to hack you? To hack me? You can't hack me. I'm unhackable. It's not true. Why would installer.exe template crash? Possibly, why would it crash? Like, when you executed it, it crashes? It could be because you're either using a 32-bit executable with a 64-bit shellcode. I've seen that before. I would make sure that the shellcode that you're generating and injecting into your template is the right architecture. Okay, that's the first of all. That's what I would verify. How long would it take the NSA to pop a shell in their box? Oh, they already have a shell in my box. Can you try strings on a Linux box, maybe off stream? I mean, it's got they're going to be. I'm not sure how it would work. I'm not sure how it works on a Linux box. I know it uses the data protection API on Windows, and most of my targets are Windows. I haven't had to extract credentials from a Linux machine. The closest was on this most recent assessment when I used WSL, but WSL automatically mounts the Windows drives. So I was accessing the user's data store on the mounted Windows drive, but I was just doing it from the Linux file system. If that makes sense. Right architecture, but doesn't attempt to finish the face download? I'm not sure what you mean by face. In my Linux box, the passwords are in clear text in that file. Yikes. That's gonna be a yikes from me, fam. If that's the case, that's gonna be a fucking yikes from me. Listen, the way that I mitigate it is I don't store any passwords in my browser whatsoever. There are no passwords stored in my browser. None. No browser that I use has my password saved in it. My normal behavior at this point is to refuse when the browser tells me, if it asks me if I want to save my password. I don't use LastPass. I use a password manager, and that password manager contains all of my credentials. I do not have any credentials that are in my browsers. KeyPass? No, I use Dashlane. That's just my personal recommend. I don't have any particular reason I use Dashlane, other than it seemed like a good option back when I was deciding on a password manager back when I chose it, like, God, 6 years ago or something. Like, I've been using Dashlane for like 6 years, like a long time. And it was one of the big password managers other than like LastPass, when I first looked into it. Now there's a whole bunch more. Now there's Nord password manager and all this stuff. All those are probably fine except for LastPass. I personally use Dashlane. Guess it don't matter where your password is when your drive or computer crashes. That's the nice thing about Dashlane, though. Dashlane is all stored in the cloud. The nice thing with what's your reservation with LastPass, they just had a huge breach. LastPass just had a huge breach like a few weeks back at the end of December.
A hunter
a few
must
weeks
hunt.
ago. Like, God, it feels like a few weeks. Jesus, like 2 months ago. Yeah, again, they've had like they've had more than one breach. They keep having breaches. Jingle Jangles, thanks for the first time. Bezos indoctrination, my friend. Mega KFC, thanks for the indoctrination into the cult. Welcome, my friends. Like a whole bunch, yeah. I remember researching password managers when I was deciding on one to use, again, like 6 years ago. And LastPass had a number of breaches already by then. And I was like, well, I'm not using them. I guess I'll go with Dashlane. Because it would sync across all my devices. I have Dashlane installed on all my devices. And I log into Dashlane with my master password and two-factor authentication every single time I need to use it. Which is annoying. But it's the price you pay for security. Then my passwords can sync across all my devices. That's how it works. But he needed to have access to Plex. Yeah. Like, I haven't like read a detailed breakdown of how it happened, but it was an out-of-date Plex server, and they managed to compromise a developer machine of like one of like the 4 people that had access to all the vaults. Incredible. I'm down deciding between Dashlane and 1Password. I don't know anything about 1Password. I don't have any particular love for Dashlane. I just know it suits my needs. And at this point, migrating password managers seems so incalculably shitty to me that I don't want to do it. I don't wanna. There's hundreds of passwords in my Dashlane at this point. I don't want to migrate. That would suck. You know, the real you know what? The real GigaChads use passwords.xlsx on their desktop, okay? That's the real password manager for GigaChads, okay? The big brain, big dick password manager is passwords.text. Yeah, there you go. What if you backdoored an AV installer? That's happened before. It's still active. It's called Malwarebytes. I'm just kidding. But seriously, the free version of Malwarebytes is actively harvesting your data. If you use the free version of Malwarebytes, I don't recommend you do that. Because it is actively harvesting your data. If something is free, you're not the customer, you're the product. I just use KeePass locally and reset a password if I need to while not at my PC. Yeah, that's fine. The key thing to remember is to use different passwords for everything, and to use two-factor authentication as often as you can. Only the free version? I don't know, maybe the pro version too, but guaranteed the free version is harvesting your data. I saw a huge blog post on it once, which means it must be true. And also because it makes sense, because why would they release a free piece of software? Also, I have a lot of malware on my machine. I used to use Malwarebytes. And I have a lot of malware on my machine and have for like a long time now. And you know how many times Malwarebytes flagged on something on my machine? And as long as I was using it, how many times do you think Malwarebytes flagged on a legitimate piece of malware on my machine? Never! Never! Windows Defender flagged on everything. Malwarebytes never... It always flags on, like, random browser files. Like, that's it. I think it only does that to make it to pretend like it's doing something while it harvests your data. That's my tinfoil hat situation. All right. We can start looking for someone to raid here. I think it was a successful experiment of like a non CTF stream. I'm totally... Is Bitwarden okay? I'm sure it's fine. Again, using basically any password manager is better than using no password manager. Okay? Don't stress too much. Just pick one and use it, okay? Use a password manager. Randomly generate all of your passwords and store them in a password manager. Don't store them in the browser. Deeply recommend you do not store your passwords in a browser. Getting coworkers to use two-factor authentication is the road to hate from everyone. I know, everyone hates two-factor. Everyone hates two-factor. Tough. The fact of the matter is that co-working stream soon. Yeah, absolutely. We'll do. I was planning on doing one tomorrow, but I think I'm going to have to run errands during the day, so it's not really going to work out. I think we may try it on Friday, maybe. I have a wedding to go to this weekend, and I'm not sure when I'll have to leave on Friday, but we may do a co-working stream on Friday. Yeah. Go watch Tiberius's stream tomorrow. Tiberius streams tomorrow. He streams on my off days. There was a wedding streamed on Twitch once. I'm sure it's happened more than once. At this point. Who are we rating? We have Dino Dan. Security Live is on. What do you guys think? Who do you want to raid? We're going to do Dom clobbering and prototype pollution. I know what one of those is. I don't really know what Dom clobbering is. I really don't. Not a clue. It's fucking crazy. Well, I'm excited about it. I'll definitely tune in and learn. I think, do we want to do Dino Dan? Prototype Pollution was not Cyber Mentoring Monday friendly. Yeah, Prototype Pollution is a little bit up there. You have to kind of know nuances of how JavaScript works. JavaScript is just weird. It's just weird. Can you do Prototype Pollution in, like, Python? Like, you can access Python prototypes. Can you do Prototype Pollution in Python? Yes, under certain conditions. Okay, yeah, but... So the answer is, it depends. The answer is always that it depends. Oh, Distortion is playing Resident Evil 4. Sick. I'm going to have to watch... I think I'm going to have to watch that. Alright, we'll raid Paleontologizing. Yeah, I watched Distortion too. He's a good dude. I follow a whole bunch of speedrunners. I follow the speedrunning scene pretty heavily. Because I think speedrunning is like speedrunning is a sister... Speedrunning is a sister enterprise to hacking. They're very related. Speedrunning and hacking are like really hacking adjacent. Yeah. Hacking adjacent. It's the same... I get the same kind of thrill out of it. I don't speedrun personally, but I get the same kind of thrill about watching people. Well, guys, thank you guys for being here for this. Again, I'm looking to branch out. We're going to do, hopefully, a productivity stream later this week. If we don't get one in this week, we'll definitely do one next week. And next week, we're also going to look at doing maybe a red team stream of some kind. Like, maybe we'll go into Cobalt Strike, and we'll talk about things like user-defined reflective loaders and beacon object files and all those things. We can maybe do some dev with process injection and so on and so forth. System calls and things like that. De-invoke, perhaps. Stuff like that. Fun stuff. More of a hacking variety streamer. Yeah, we're still going to do plenty of Hack the Box, Try Hack Me. We're going to do Try Hack Me's second box. It's called Second. S-E-C-O-N-D. We'll do that on Thursday. I've heard it's really, really good. Get excited for it. I'm excited. Did you mention some swag hoodies? I've got to get the course done first, and then I'll do merch. Can you make beacon object files outside of a framework? Yes. Beacon object files are just object files written in C. They can be executed in Cobalt Strike, Sliver, and Meterpreter, apparently. Say hi to Dino Dan for me. Go to bed tonight knowing a little bit more than you did yesterday. See you guys again when the stars are right. Have a good night, day, or whatever time it is, wherever you are. Stay safe. Love all of you guys.